The time is now 4:06 p.m. on Thursday, January 6, 2022. Members of the public who attend the meeting physically will be asked to maintain distance between other parties, and masks will be required for all attendees per City of Tempe policy. Alternatively, members of the public may attend the meeting virtually through Cisco WebEx events by visiting tempe.gov/clerk for more information. Council meetings can also be watched in real time via Cox Cable Channel 11 and at tempe.gov/channel 11. Since we are holding this council meeting in a hybrid in-person virtual format, please be patient if we encounter any technical issues. Item number 1 is called to the audience. The City Council welcomes public comment at this time for items listed under Section 2, Issue Review Session items, and Section 4, Committee of the Whole items on this work study session agenda. There is a 3-minute time limit per speaker. I'm going to go ahead. I know our clerk, Carla Reese, has a number of cards to read into the record, and I've got some here myself as soon as you're done.
Thank you, Mayor. First card is from Kunal Harmalkar regarding Smith Innovation Hub. Kunal writes, I would like to discuss the lack of safe bike infrastructure, particularly a protected bike lane on Smith. As someone new to the area, biking has helped me learn more about Tempe, but at the same time, I have noticed many safety issues that prevent me from fully exploring the city. A bike lane on Smith, along with greater investment in biking infrastructure, would be a great way to help improve the area. Next card comes from Jasmine Little regarding the Smith Innovation Hub. She writes, I would like to urge the city to install a protected bike lane on Smith Road immediately. I do not own a car. I bike, take transit, and walk all over Tempe. The city is not safe for people who are not in cars. Not only is it reckless to put residents at unnecessary risk, but also all of the thousands of tax-paying residents, like myself, are being cheated out of public services. I want my streets to accommodate multiple modes of transportation safely. A protected bike lane on Smith Road would help accomplish that and put my tax dollars to good use. Next card comes from Sylvia Shavkovi, also regarding Smith Innovation Hub. Sophia writes, I want to urge the City Council to require protected bike lanes on Smith Road as quickly as possible. In my day-to-day life, there is no time I feel less safe than biking along cars traveling much faster than the limit and aggressively speeding past me. Smith Road connects major points of economic and development interest, yet does not represent fair transportation access for all people in the surrounding community. Buffered bike lanes do not provide any significant safety improvements for bicyclists. To truly advocate for our community, a protected bike lane is necessary to ensure everyone has equitable access to their preferred method of transportation. I wish more American cities were built with bicyclists and pedestrians in mind. More than that, I wish my home city of Tempe will take urgent action, prioritize safety, and be an example for others to follow suit. Next item comes from Sarah Zhao regarding Smith Innovation Hub. Sarah writes, I would like City Council to require protected bike lanes on Smith Road to be executed urgently. I often visit Tempe and love to bike from the rail station to Tempe Town Lake. This would make my biking experience so much better and safer. Next item comes from Charisse Bangerter regarding Smith Innovation Hub. Charisse writes, I work for the Tempe-based company Cul-de-sac, which has opened my eyes to the need for equitable bike lane options for all cities. Adding a protected, equitable bike lane will enhance the safety of cyclists and encourage more people to use greener transportation options, promoting healthier cities in the long term. Next item comes from Robert Schaffer regarding Smith Innovation Hub. And Robert writes, I will be moving to Tempe in 2022, and my bicycle will be my primary transportation. I have spent some time cycling in Tempe, and while there are bike lanes, they're very often either share with vehicles or offer only a painted line as protection against encroachment by vehicles. The section of Smith Road between Apache Boulevard and Rio Salado Parkway is, I think, one of the most dangerous to bicyclists in the entire city. This danger is due to the lack of protected bike lane on one of the most traveled accesses to the Rio Salado Bikeway. This project offers the perfect opportunity to correct this dangerous situation. My children, thank you for your consideration. Next item comes from Anders Engnell regarding Smith Innovation Hub. Anders writes, I'm a resident of the Apache Corridor and regular volunteer at the Escalante Community Garden. Many of my fellow volunteers and friends in the Escalante and Alegre communities rely on bikes for commuting, grocery shopping, and helping at the Escalante Garden. Smith Road is the best route for many of us to access shops, jobs, and the garden. For the safety of us and our kids, we would love a dedicated, protected, and multi-lane bike corridor on Smith Road from Apache to Rio Salado. Thank you for your time and consideration of this important topic. Next item comes from Nathan Maruka regarding Smith Innovation Hub. Nathan writes, as the principal of nearby Thew Elementary School and having worked in the community for the past 7 years, I have seen how important it is for the community to have safe places to ride bikes. Having a protected bike lane on Smith would help encourage kids and families to safely utilize bike transportation. Our kids deserve to be protected, and research shows these bike lanes do just that. If you have further questions regarding my support of this, feel free to contact me. Next item is from Molly Lara regarding Smith Innovation Hub. Molly writes, Tempe is my home away from home, having lived and worked there for the past 5 years. Tempe is a city of innovation, but the bike infrastructure is sorely lacking. I would like to recommend the City Council require a protected bike lane on Smith Road as one of the most important updates to the bike infrastructure. Tempe Marketplace and cycling around Tempe Town Lake are 2 activities I love and constantly recommend to out-of-state visitors. But at this point, I feel I am risking my safety when cycling to and from. It is dangerous. Please consider making this bike lane protected and more accessible. Next item comes from Enrique Favaro regarding Smith Innovation Hub. Enrique writes, I strongly encourage the City of Tempe to put up a protected bike lane on Smith Road. I work near the area and see Smith Road as an important artery for bike transportation in the area. In November 2020, I was crossing a canal path on a bike. The street had a red light at the intersection, and it appeared safe to cross. In a split second, an SUV weighing over 5,800 pounds ran the red light and hit me. I shouldn't be alive today. I learned then that a bike lane, paint, space buffers, and red lights are only imaginary barriers. It only takes a split second, a miscalculation of time, or a distraction for a bicyclist's life to be in danger. Only a meaningful physical barrier, such as a protected bike lane, can provide bicyclists with the security and protection that they need. Next item comes from Jennifer Rode regarding Smith Innovation Hub. Jennifer writes, as a resident and co-lead of Alegre neighborhood, having a protected bike lane on Smith Road is an urgent priority for me. Smith Road is one of the boundaries of our neighborhood, just south of the Smith Innovation Hub, and a street used often by residents. A protected bike lane from the light rail stop on Apache to Tempe Marketplace would be an immense achievement in providing residents safe and accessible travel options. A buffered bike lane from Rio Salado to University is a good start, but not sufficient for accomplishing the goals of the Smith Innovation Hub project and meeting the needs of Tempe residents. It is crucial that the bike lane, number 1, be protected, and number 2, extend all the way to Apache. If it is only buffered and not protected, cyclists are not genuinely safe. If it stops at University and doesn't go to Apache, it is not genuinely accessible. Our community has been requesting this bike lane for over 25 years, and it is an urgent priority for us. Thank you for your consideration. Next item from Alexis Still regarding Smith Innovation Hub. Alexis writes, as a new resident of Tempe that will be getting around primarily by bike safety is something I care about deeply. Because of this, I am requesting a protected bike lane on Smith Road. I would like to emphasize that it should be a protected bike lane, not just buffered. A bike lane on this road would help me and every other cyclist feel safer biking along this route, a route that many depend on for their daily commute. The citizens of Tempe have been requesting a bike lane like this for a long time. This bike lane should be a priority for the city and executed urgently. Thank you for your time. Next item comes from Ronnie Sue Lee regarding Smith Innovation Hub. Ronnie Sue writes, please install protected north-south bike lanes on Smith Road from Apache to Rio Salado as soon as possible. For our neighborhoods around Smith Road, dedicated bike lanes are vital for our safety and has a characteristic of community strength and forward thinking that we need more of. Communities along Apache have been asking for bike lanes on non-arterial streets for more than 20 years. So it is time to prioritize this. Smith Road bike lanes will be greatly appreciated. Thank you. Next item comes from Steve Milne. He's writing regarding item 4A1. Steve writes, hello, we, the board members of the Tempe Bicycle Action Group, would like to request and support the use of a protected bike lane on Smith Road. So I'm guessing this is Smith Innovation Hub rather than item 4. Protected bike lanes are a way to implement the city's Vision Zero campaign, as well as attract cyclists and other transportation modes to interact with a greater part of the city. A protected bike lane makes people feel safer, therefore allowing them to explore their state and interact with new business and events. The Tempe Bicycle Action Group are willing and able to help in any way we can with this project to see it to its completion. Thank you. Next item comes from Levon Milne regarding Smith Road Bike Lane, and Levon writes, the safety of bicycle riders should be of the utmost importance. Providing a protective bike lane on Smith will give the added security and the necessary safety for riders. Bike riding reduces traffic. Bike riding reduces pollution. We should be encouraging more people to use pedal power. Increasing safety measures helps ease new riders' nerves. Please provide a protected bike lane on Smith. And Mayor, that closes out the public comment that I have, and you have a few live speakers up there with you.
Sounds good. Thank you, Madam Clerk. All right, we also have here a couple of folks here. Hold on here. Let me go to Aaron from Cul-de-sac. You can come on up to the front here to the chair. Just please come and state your name and place of residence. You have 3 minutes to address the City Council.
Excellent. Hello, members of the council. It's a pleasure to be here. My name is Erin, and I lead commercial real estate with Cul-de-sac, and I also help lead our government and external relations team. We are a car-free neighborhood that's going to be built on Apache, just south of where the Smith Innovation Hub will be located. And so we are very excited to see the bike lane that's going to be in the Smith Innovation Hub plans. But as you heard on the floor today from many members of the neighborhood, the principal of the elementary school, members of the local neighborhood, we want more than just a bike lane that's buffered. The main concern is that it's not protected. And so that main difference is that it's not just a stripe, but it actually has protected buffers. So that can be like armadillos that we've seen here so effectively work for the streetcar in Tempe. And so not only would this help with Vision Zero and safety, but we've also seen that it also helps with business goals. And so if you've seen many innovative companies like Cul-de-sac and others are looking for bicycle lanes, and that's exactly what the Smith Innovation Hub is going to offer, is a way to attract new businesses. And last but not least, we've also seen that it helps to support accessibility. We see right now that the light rail going through Tempe is really critical, and the Alegre and Escalante neighborhoods bike and use transit 1.5 times more than the rest of Tempe. And so if we can extend that bike lane all the way from Rio Salado to Apache, then the neighborhood actually has access to that bike lane. So we really hope that you'll consider supporting a protected bike lane as part of the Smith Innovation Hub Innovation Grant. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Aaron. Really appreciate it. Next up here, we have Russell Rowlands. Is Russell here this evening?
Russell originally requested to appear in WebEx, but we don't see him present in the WebEx audience.
Not in the queue. Okay, no worries. All right, and my last two cards here, make sure I pronounce this right. I have Jordan Heitzman or Hitzman.
Right here.
All right, sure. Come on down. Please state your name and place of residence. You have 3 minutes to address the City Council.
Hello, my name is, oh, should I wait? Oh, okay. Hello, my name is Jordan Hitzman, and I'm a resident of Tempe, Arizona. And I'm here today not just as a student, but I'm a member of Generation Ratify, which is the youth-led initiative to ratify the Equal Rights Amendment. I am also the founder of the Girls in Cities Project, which is an advocacy organization that advocates for cities and policies to be designed to consider women and gender minorities. And I am also a girl who lives, learns, works, and votes in the city of Tempe. And I'm speaking today to offer the gender equity perspective as to why it is urgent that we implement the Smith Innovation Hub Master Plan. As many people here today probably already know, implementing the Smith Innovation Hub Master Plan would offer significant development in terms of pedestrian and cyclist infrastructure. This includes sidewalk improvements like detached sidewalks, protected bicycle lanes, as well as improved lighting on Smith Road, Perry Lane, and Fifth Street. Now, why is it more relevant to women that we implement this master plan? Well, first of all, women make up the majority of the city of Tempe's population. In addition, about a year ago, in one evening, a close friend of mine watched a woman get hit by a car and killed while crossing the street. And not only was witnessing this event inherently traumatizing, but it also illustrates a disturbing trend, which is that women make up the majority of pedestrian-related traffic deaths. And part of this is there's another issue, which is that women are disproportionately affected by gender-based violence and street harassment. So safety adaptations like the ones proposed in the Smith Innovation Master Plan, like the pedestrian lighting, would help make cities safer and more accessible to women. Therein, by implementing the Smith Innovation Hub Master Plan, we're supporting action that will make the city of Tempe a safer and more accessible place for women. I would also like to cite a few city of Tempe policies that would help urge why gender equity is important in this context. First of all, this is on the basis of ordinance number 02016.25, which prohibits discrimination in public accommodations on the basis of gender and gender identity, in the spirit of ensuring that the city of Tempe, quote, encourages all persons to contribute to, fully participate in, and contribute to the cultural, social, spiritual, and commercial life and activities in Tempe. If we act against measures that are set to improve pedestrian safety, we are unintentionally perpetuating gender discrimination, as we are preventing those who are affected most by poor pedestrian infrastructure from fully and safely accessing their cities. The second is on the basis of Tempe's sustainability goals. Citing specifically, the city of Tempe is dedicated to growing a sustainable city alongside community stakeholders to be resilient for our future. Tempe is taking action to reduce emissions, to cultivate resilience by focusing on guiding principles of fiscal responsibility, enterprise, equity, engagement, and effectiveness. And I want to focus on the equity portion. As part of our efforts to develop a more sustainable city, it is essential that we consider how this policy is going to directly make the city a more equitable place for women and girls to live in. Further, the fact of the matter is that the Smith Innovation Hub Master Plan is not just a question, it's not just a pedestrian and cyclist issue, it's a women's issue, and it's an equality issue. And I urge the City Council to act accordingly and treat it as so. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it. And my last speaker is Hannah Moulton-Balek. Please come forward, state your name and place of residence. You have 3 minutes to address the City Council.
Hi, I'm Hannah Moulton-Balek. I'm from Tempe. I'm also the chair of the Neighborhood Advisory Commission. I wanted to share some specific entries from the Board and Commission survey that staff conducted this fall. In response to the question of how the city could improve board member engagement with city management and council, these were some of the answers. And please keep in mind that it's in many of our mission statements that we advise mayor and council. One reads, I think over the years, these boards have lost importance. I have felt less involvement by management and council. Another, there currently is no interaction between my commission and City of Tempe Management and Council. Anything would be an improvement. Another, let us send them info/memos. If I'm being honest, I feel like we are discouraged from interacting with the council. Another, City Council should respect the expertise of the board/commission. If the council is not on the same page with the unanimous vote of a board or commission, there should be discussion to understand the difference and perhaps compromise. Another, to start, City Council could actually follow the recommendations of the boards and commissions. In my own experience, it typically has not been enough for the commission I serve on to simply pass a measure recommending a particular action. We've had to actively reach out to council, and when they take time to listen, we must explain our actions and advocate that they follow through, rather than having our role as subject matter experts and community representatives respected in the measures themselves. To me, this represents a failure of leadership on the part of our elected officials. Another, in the last 8 years, council members never come to our meetings. The messages we get are that they do not care what we do. Another simply reads, take us seriously. If you take the time to read more of those responses, you'll see consistent feedback about the passivity of commissions and how little they feel they get done. Speaking from my own experience, NAC has gotten to a good place of being proactive, but that result has been extremely hard fought. We've been discouraged and gatekept. The only way we've gotten to where we are now is because of the generosity of our peers on other commissions, giving us insight on how they do things, the support of some members of council, and many, many hours of work. It's very demoralizing to feel like you have no impact whatsoever when you're volunteering your time. Furthermore, if we want to diversify our boards and commissions by age and race, we need to make it an experience that's worthwhile and impactful so that otherwise busy people will want to serve. I hope you'll take the opportunity to reform the boards and commissions very seriously. I think you should strongly consider disbanding some commissions, setting stricter term limits, forbidding people from serving on multiple commissions at once, empowering the commissions, standardizing the operations so that practices don't vary so much, and be crystal clear with yourselves and each other about whether each and every board and commission is worth your time, worth the volunteers' time of commissioners, and worth the time of your staff. I've often felt that NAC was simply giving lip service to embracing public feedback, so I hope you'll endeavor to make every board and commission a real value to the city and its participants. Thank you.
Thank you, appreciate it. All right, and that concludes my comments here. I always like to give those to the clerk before the end of the meeting before I forget and leave them at my seat. Okay. So thank you everyone for providing public comment this evening. Next up, we have item 2, the issue review session items. The first item is item 2A, the Smith Innovation Hub Infrastructure Master Plan. And I'm going to go ahead and call upon Marilyn DeRosa and Jill Bushbacher and Michael LaBianca. I wanted to say too for everyone, this meeting is a hybrid meeting, and so there are going to be some presenters who will be here in person, but obviously due to the surge in the Omicron variant, there are going to be several people who are going to be presenting online this evening, just so you know. And also there are 4 other members of council who I believe are on this call right now. So I know you see myself and Councilmember Garland sitting here in the chambers, but other council members are clearly with us. Otherwise, we would not have quorum to do this meeting. So with that said, I'm going to go back and turn it over to Marilyn, Jill, and Michael to go ahead and start the presentation.
Thank you, Mayor and members of council. I am going to actually turn it over to Jill and Michael. I just want to say this is an important partnership. This study was an important partnership with economic development, and Donna and Jill have been tremendous to work with. They recognize that there are some infrastructure concerns in the Smith Innovation Hub, and this study is making recommendations for improvements and some prioritization of those improvements. At the end of the presentation, if council has questions, Jill and I will circle back. Michael will give the bulk of the presentation. Jill and I will circle back, and we can touch on how to fund certain improvements or any other concerns that the council might have. So with that, Jill, I am going to turn off my camera and turn this over to you.
Thanks, Marilyn. In March of 2018, the Council approved Economic Development's Innovation Hub initiative, which identified the Smith Innovation Hub as our pilot area for a variety of reasons, top among them being that it's a gateway area to our city near our eastern border with Mesa. It's likely where the next extension of the streetcar will run, and it's located in a very desirable area with new development all around it, many successful businesses in it, and so on. But not to say that there aren't some challenges and opportunities there as well, certainly. So we've worked with the community over the last 3 years on developing the vision for the area and listening to what their needs were. And as Marilyn said, chief among them were some, the lack of infrastructure and some infrastructure needs, such as lack of lighting, sidewalks, and ability to travel safely generally through the area. And the city annexed this area into Tempe starting in the 1950s, and we just really haven't invested in it since we brought it into our community many, many decades ago. And so, it's time for us, obviously, to bring it up to city standards, and this plan helps us identify how we can go about that. And next slide, please. And so as you'll see on this slide, there are a couple of city performance measures that this relates to, but in addition to those, I just want to mention, 20-minute city, Vision Zero goals, sustainability, which Michael, our consultant, will get into a little bit as well, and economic development goals for attracting jobs and capital investment, which are always top of mind to us. And then certainly kind of some of the equity items that were mentioned earlier, because the neighborhood to the south relies on traveling, through and around this neighborhood to get to the closest grocery store and shopping area and so on. And so with that, I'll go ahead and I'll turn it over to our colleague with HDR, Michael LaBianca, and appreciate all the work that you've done, Michael, and I'll let you take it away from here.
Very good. Thank you, Jill. Mayor Woods and council members, my name is Michael LaBianca with HDR Engineering, and I was the project manager for the Smith Innovation Hub Infrastructure Master Plan. Through this presentation, I'll refer to it as a Smith Hub just for ease of presentation. And if you could advance to the next slide for me, please.
Isn't working properly. Okay.
One moment, we're trying to get the interface up so we can see the
Just one
slides
moment,
here.
please. We're having some issues. We've got.
Well, as I said at the beginning, since we're holding this meeting in a hybrid in-person virtual format, please be patient if we have any technical issues. So please be patient. If I had jokes or if I sang, this whole room would empty out.
I got jokes, Mayor.
Vice Mayor Keating, I totally trust you on that one.
Those are my normal buttons that I use to escape. Advancing slides. Working on this one. He's working on that. No, it's, I have to get out, see, it's not, and it won't take you scroll, there's a scroll wheel. So let me try that. Like, once it goes to full screen, it will not change. So we have the presenter pull it up, and they can run it through. That would be ideal if they could. For some reason, it's just not advancing, like I can't. It's not wanting to show, like when I go.
If it helps, Jason, I could operate it from my laptop while you troubleshoot.
That would be helpful, thank you.
Okay, no problem.
And thank you, Mayor. This is Michael. I'm still standing by, so.
Thank you, Michael.
I need the ability to share.
Is there any way to give Marilyn the ability to share her screen?
I made her a presenter.
Okay, thank you so much. Hopefully you're looking at my screen that shows the slide number 3.
Yes, thank you.
Yes, looks like we're good. Okay, now we're on to the, oh. Okay, there were. All right, I saw 3 slides in a matter of 10 seconds.
Okay, Marilyn, I can begin if you'd like.
Are we good with beginning at this point, or?
Should be seeing her screen full, but I don't know why it's not.
I guess Jason can, if Jason, you can give me the cue to go ahead, I can advance.
Go ahead and advance.
Okay, so go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, thank you. We'll pause here just for a moment. This is the Smith Innovation Hub, and as Jill mentioned, it's one of the innovation hubs that the City Council had identified in 2018. It's about 1/2 square mile, bordered on the north by Rio Salado Parkway and the south by University Drive, on the west by McClintock, and to the east, State Route 101 loop. And south of the Smith Innovation Hub is the Escalante and Alegre Parks communities. We've heard from some of the community members in the comments earlier. And this population of about 9,000 Tempe residents has a greater propensity for transit and biking to work, as was mentioned, in fact, 1.5 times the city's rate. And so they do travel, anecdotally, at least we understand, through the Smith to access groceries and retail services in the Tempe marketplace, as well as the Rio Salado mixed-use, multi-use path to the north. As you are all aware, there's a lot of development occurring on Rio Salado, mixed-use development, including the Novus, another innovation hub, and the Rio 2100 project. And then within the Smith, currently under construction is the Tempe Market Station, which is located between Perry Lane and Smith Road. It's the first mixed-use project within the Smith. Currently, there's over 250 businesses operating in the Smith and over 5,000 employees. So it's a vital economic center of the city. But as Jill mentioned, a lot of these older industrial buildings are transitioning to more commercial and retail uses. And so we're seeing a change in uses. Next slide, please. So the infrastructure master plan was not so much a visioning document as a plan to prioritize and provide an implementation plan for specific project and improvements that are needed in the area. And the project was guided by adopted Tempe plans, including the general plan, the Apache Area Character Plan, the city's transportation plan, and a general plan amendment that occurred in 2020, changing the land use on the northern side of the site. The implementation plan also puts together preliminary costs and, as was mentioned, priorities for project implementation. Next slide, please. The project began last February, and prior to public outreach, we conducted a business survey with businesses and employers in the area and received feedback from them, which helped identify some of the concerns. One of the things we heard from a lot of businesses as part of that survey was the location. Many of these businesses have been in the Smith hub for over 30 years. And a few of the challenges that they identified included sidewalk condition. They'd like to see continuous sidewalks throughout the Smith hub, as well as lighting. And those are issues that had been mentioned earlier as well in the public comments. Our first public meeting, we presented alternatives for the streetscape and various infrastructure needs in the Smith and received feedback on those. Next slide, please. In July, we had the opportunity to hold an in-person meeting. And what I'd like to point out here is a number of responses that we received following that meeting. And just to characterize some of those responses, again, consistent with the comments we heard tonight, 83% of those comments referred to the bike lane on Smith Road. I'm going to talk a little bit about that as one of the recommendations. 62% of the comments referred to a protected bike lane on Smith Road. So again, the need to look at enhanced bicycle facility along Smith. 41% asked for the infrastructure plan to consider extending that bike lane south to Apache Boulevard. That is the location of light rail transit and also the cul-de-sac carless development that was mentioned earlier this evening as well. And in fact, 13% of the commenters following the second public meeting identified as being associated with the cul-de-sac development. Next slide, please. This is showing the current land use in the Smith hub. And I want to point out the change that occurred in 2020 that designated the northern half of the Smith Hub as industrial mixed use. And what that allowed was a range of uses, including vertical and or horizontal mixed use on those sites, as well as mixed use along the Rio Salado Parkway. And in fact, as I mentioned earlier, Tempe Market Station is an 8-acre project between Perry Lane and Smith Road that will be a mixed-use development and is under construction today. So one of the questions that the infrastructure master plan looked at was, is the existing infrastructure in the area capable of handling the change in land use that's anticipated with this land use change? Next slide, please. Transportation overview summarizes some of the issues that we identified both through comments, the outreach, and also the adopted plans that I mentioned. And just want to highlight a couple of issues. Smith Road, which is north-south through the center of the Smith Hub, is bus route 62, and that takes transit users up to Tempe Marketplace, which has one of the top 3 boardings for transit in the city of Tempe. Also on Rio Salado, the proposed streetcar is proposed to extend along the northern edge of the site of the Tempe Smith Hub. Additionally, I want to point out that Smith Road is the bike it route reflector. It's been identified in the transportation plan, referenced earlier in the comments, and it extends essentially from Chandler all the way up to the Rio Salado River. Bike it routes are essentially bike boulevards or bicycle routes through the city that provide important connections. And this is one of the routes that have been identified. It's an important consideration. And finally, I want to point out the right-of-way constraints that exist within the Smith. Most of the right-of-way in the Smith is 60 feet, which accommodates 1 lane in each direction for travel. Some sidewalks, although it's limited. But there is a constrained area on Perry Lane north of 3rd Street that has only 30 feet of right-of-way. In addition, there's no curb and gutter in this area, and so ponding occurs during flooding events. Next slide. So in developing the recommendations, we focus on priorities of improved safety, pedestrian bicycle access, and also business access. Next slide. So the recommendations in the short term are pretty focused on a couple of routes, and I'm going to walk through each one of those quickly now, beginning with Perry Lane, and that's the route that has the constraint north of 5th Street, rather, and that's the route that has a constrained right of way. So one of the recommendations is to acquire the additional right-of-way to match the street section to the south of 5th Street, which would be 60 feet of right-of-way, and that's shown in the photo bottom left. In addition, we're proposing the recommendation rather that sidewalks be detached, which would allow for enhanced areas of landscape as well as low impact development that would help address the ponding that occurs during significant rainfall events. Next slide. The low impact development is an approach to stormwater management that uses the landscape to mitigate stormwater runoff. And there's an example here on the right, photo from College Avenue, project that was implemented a number of years ago. And other benefits of the low impact development includes first flush pollution reduction, enhanced landscape, and also provides street shade. And so this area of low impact development would be alternated with on-street parking to accommodate parking for some vehicles on that section of Perry Lane. Next slide. One of the things that we heard through our business outreach was the importance of on-street parking for a number of businesses throughout the Smith. 5th Street was one of those streets. And so for the alternatives that were proposed on 5th Street between Perry and Smith, we're recommending to maintain the existing on-street parking, but to provide detached sidewalks that would again allow for landscape strips to provide improved shade on that route. Next slide, please. Smith Road today operates one lane in each direction with a two-way left turn lane in the center. Uh, the Smith businesses have a lot of deliveries, and so there's up to 20% truck traffic within the Smith. So our recommendation is to maintain the two-way left turn lane, to eliminate the parking on Smith Road, which would result in a net loss of approximately 90 on-street parking spaces, and incorporate buffered bicycle lanes. We're identifying them here as buffered bike lanes because this is not a design, but rather a master plan. And so a number of considerations have to be included in the designation of bicycle facilities, including the numerous drive entrances, truck navigation ability through the neighborhood, as well as intersection treatments. So additional consideration has to be made before a specific recommendation on the actual configuration of the street would be made. Next slide, please. So this short-term summary is focused on this network of streets, Smith, 5th Street, and Perry Lane, that would provide improved active transportation through the area, improved bicycle facilities, as well as addressing some of the ADA deficiencies with existing intersections and driveway entrances. It also would introduce additional shade, much needed throughout the Smith Hub, and would address the on-street ponding that occurs after significant rain events on Perry Lane. And it also establishes a framework for active transportation as the land uses in the Smith continue to convert to more mixed use with the potential for residents living within the Smith Hub. Next slide. In addition, the recommendations in the short term identify lighting on those same routes. The orange dots here represent the existing lighting and not quite up to city standards. So the recommendation shows enhanced lighting that would bring these primary through routes up to city standards. In the long term, all of the Smith streets would be recommended to be brought up to city standards for lighting. Next slide. We also looked at the water and wastewater needs for the area, and looking back at the 2015 City of Tempe Master Plan and then updating it with the changed land uses that I mentioned were adopted in 2020. And we found that there are no significant deficiencies with regard to these changing land uses, and that most of the necessary improvements would be implemented through development agreements with new development. One exception to that would be a section on Perry Lane where there's an opportunity to replace some of the water line at the time of the roadway improvements that were mentioned. Next slide. We're also recommending bus shelters along Smith Road. There's 4 bus stops today for Route 62, and these would provide shade and amenities for transit users and pedestrians, much needed throughout the Smith Hub. And the bus shelters also provide an opportunity for Smith Hub branding if art shelters were designated by the city. Next slide. In the long term, we would focus improvements on additional sidewalks on some of those additional primary routes, which include Rockford and River Drives. And if you've seen the improvements that West Pharma is making at the south end of the Smith Hub on Rockford Drive, you'll see that they have already begun to implement detached sidewalks and street trees in that area. And that's the vision for some of those primary routes. Next slide. Ultimately, the vision is that active transportation routes would be improved throughout the Smith. This just shows some of those sections of roadway that would have improved sidewalks. And in addition, those dotted lines are just a conceptual idea of how with any aggregated development that occurs in that northeast quadrant, there might be accommodations for pedestrian and bicycle traffic through what are today quarter-mile long route streets to provide more of an urban grid for pedestrians and bicyclists. And with that, I'm going to ask to advance to the next slide. And Marilyn, if you want to talk a little bit about next steps, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. We're going to finalize the recommendations on the plan sometime in the next month or so. And those recommendations are based on the priorities that Michael mentioned. Safety and safety is an important component of that. Now, as far as funding requests are concerned, there are possibilities to leverage some of the existing capital program monies. For example, street lighting, some sidewalk enhancements, perhaps drainage. So we're looking at opportunities to work with other managers of other programs to ensure that these elements are included in their overall project portfolio. There's also, then there will be some projects that we will advance through the capital, the regular annual CIP program, and those will be submitted. They were recently submitted. We're going through them now. Mark Day and his team are currently going through those funding, those requests, those capital project requests, and how those prioritize against other projects will depend largely on the entire portfolio of requests. So, but there will be some funding requests or some CIP requests related to the Smith Hub. I also want to say that there's a number of other, Jill is the owner of this, so to speak, but there are so many, it touches on so many other of the city's priorities. There's an opportunity here to provide improvements in this, whether they're IT improvements or street lighting improvements or drainage improvements, bicycle infrastructure that touch on a variety of programs and priorities that the council has set. So I think this was a really valuable effort. The projects, once they're funded, will design projects. And what's important about, I just want to say briefly about the protected or the buffered bike lane. There's a substantial amount of outreach that we'd like to do. There's a variety of options for how that kind of infrastructure might look. I think that it's really, I'm happy to see that the community is behind this effort. And we will do our best to bring back to council when we reach that point, bring back to council what the different options are with respect to the alignment of the bike infrastructure and what it looks like, and then what the various options would be. So with that, I don't know, Jill, if you have anything that you would like to end with.
Thank you so much, Marilyn and Michael. Just one last thing I want to mention as it relates to funding and design. We did put a request forward to engineering just a couple of weeks ago. And so we're working with engineering and transportation to bring on a consultant that'll begin some of the outreach and design for a bike lane from Apache to Rio Salado Parkway. So that's some good news for everyone because we have funding in place to do that currently. Again, that's for outreach and design. That's not for construction, but we're excited to be able to announce that. Thank you.
Great, great. Thank you so much. Really appreciate the presentation. Couple things here. I know I've got Councilmember Adams who's going to speak, but council members, if anyone on the phone wants to speak this evening, please just sort of get my attention. I can't see people raising hands through the WebEx. So I'll go to Councilmember Adams, Councilmember Garland. I've got comments, and then whoever else wants to jump in. So let me go to Councilmember Adams first.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Really appreciate it. Thanks for the great presentation. I am 100% in support for adding a separate bike lane and a barrier between the traffic and the bicyclists on Smith Road. I rode the area recently, and when you ride it, you totally understand the need for a barrier and a bike lane, a separate barrier and a bike lane. As someone who rides my bicycle throughout the city, I truly understand how scary it can be on the road. And so this question is directed towards Marilyn. What is our time frame for bringing this back to council?
Thank you for that question, Councilmember Adams. As you know, we have a large transportation master plan that has a variety of elements. And Jill and her team are preparing a capital project request for submittal in this upcoming packet. And that request would then be prioritized against all of the other requests for infrastructure. So I think that at that time, when the prioritization of that capital program is occurring, I won't be the one bringing it forward. It will come forward as part of the entire capital program request, but there will be an opportunity for council to weigh in at that time.
So the time frame would be like kind of when we do the budget for the CIPs. Is that what you're saying, Marilyn?
Yeah, and Mark Day, I think, can tell you exactly when, but I think he's going to have his first cut for council's review in March.
Okay. Yeah, just because I'm asking because I'm so concerned about people's safety, and we have lost a lot of bicyclists to cars, and I just want to, fast track this as much as we can, just to save people's lives, quite frankly. So thank you for your comments, Mayor. I'm all done asking questions. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Councilmember Adams. Let me next go to Councilmember Garland.
All right, thank you. So thank you for the presentation, and you had a slide, it was slide number 9, Marilyn, when you were showing this, and when I was looking through this presentation in preparation for this meeting today, I saw slide 9, and on it, it has a picture of a bike and then this big loop between the car and the bike. And actually, when I looked at it, I'm like, whoa, cool, we're going to have like a protected bike lane. That's awesome. But it was probably just the graphic you used, but I got really excited about it. So I did contact Eric in transportation and had asked a few questions because I really wanted to understand what protected bike lanes look like, maybe what their costs are and how they get implemented. And I have like this little list that's really kind of cool. It gives you on it, it's 14 ways to make bike lanes better and they're protected. I did not see, as Aaron mentioned, an armadillo, but there are other things on here called turtle bumps, large bumps, oblong bumps. There's just a bunch of names. I didn't see armadillo, but I also think that it's really important that we look at, they have this great opportunity on this road right now to make a decision in advance of redoing that road and really looking at doing a protected bike lane. And I'm not thinking of just the white stripes that we see on the ground. So I would support us doing that, and the sooner the better. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Councilmember Garland. I have a few comments, and then I'm going to go to Councilmember Navarro next after this. So there are a number of things. Thank you for the presentation. There are just a number of things that I would probably like to add, so I'll try to make this as quick as possible. When I think of the Smith Industrial Innovation Hub, the word, of course, that really jumps out to me is innovation. And that's what I really want this hub to be. And so from my perspective, we should be looking at trying out a lot of newer technologies in this area to truly brand it and really to deliver on exactly what we promised our residents and businesses in the area we were going to accomplish by actually naming this that. So there are a couple of things that I was scribbling down as I was listening to the presentation. One of the first ones, and I know Marilyn mentioned this towards the end, is energy efficient street lighting. We talk about being a community that really cares about sustainability and really doing our part to help our kids and our grandkids and those who come along afterwards. So I think that would be obviously huge. We've talked a lot about expanding the use of EV charging stations throughout our community. I think the Smith Hub could be another place where we frankly seek to put even more charging stations. Fiber is obviously a huge thing. I think when we're talking about digging up streets and doing a lot of capital maintenance work in the Smith Hub and everywhere else around it, I think we need to talk about ways to truly lay fiber in that area. The reality is that is the future of where we are all going as a society, and so I think it would be a shame if we did a lot of capital infrastructure work in that area and we frankly don't lay the fiber that we need to really be competitive moving forward and to really make this an innovation hub. I also was sort of jotting down notes about Smart metering for parking, I think, is another really clear innovation that we need to expand throughout the city, but also in the Smith Industrial Innovation Hub. There's conversations about autonomous vehicles that we could obviously have as well in that area. But the last thing that I'll go to is the protected bike lane on Smith. And from my perspective, this is something that I 100% support. I think, Cul-de-sac is obviously a very creative, innovative company, and I think the project that they're proposing in that area is clearly going to put the city on the map, not just simply from a local or regional standpoint, but from a national and an international standpoint. And I want the project to be tremendously successful because I would love to see other car-free communities pop up, not just in the city of Tempe, but throughout the valley. And so from my perspective, the protected bike lane on Smith is absolutely a must. I think we owe it to the people who are going to be living in this community, and of course, given the fact that this is a Smith Industrial Innovation Hub, to really put that innovation in there. It's an innovative thing to do what Cul-de-sac is doing. I think we need to find ways to ensure that we are truly protecting the people who are using bikes, not just simply for leisure, but frankly as a primary mode of transportation, getting back and forth to work or to a friend's home. And I would like to see that accelerated. My only concern, Marilyn, when you talked about kind of preparing something and putting it in the capital budget to be vetted and for the council and for staff to consider, my concern is, I don't think, given that timeline, and I could be wrong, that means we would have a protected bike lane in place by the time cul-de-sac is actually open for operation and people are moving into the site. So that's my only concern. I just want to make sure that what we're doing is we're not saying we're going to have a protected bike lane and that will probably be there 2 or 3 years after the development's already been in existence. I feel like it needs to be in existence either on day one when the development actually opens, or it needs to be open at least shortly thereafter at a minimum. So I don't know, Marilyn, if you could speak to that, but that's just sort of my primary concern from a timing standpoint is, I think this is a really critical development, and I'm really glad that cul-de-sac chose, City of Tempe to do something really, truly innovative. But I think, therefore, we owe it to really protect the people who are on their bicycles in that area, in that innovation hub. So I don't know if you can talk about that just frankly, from a timing standpoint or a funding standpoint.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor, and members of council. We worked, we did a lot of conversing and had a lot of, I guess, calisthenics around ways to get something expedited on Smith. We have the opportunity to do some temporary markings, like sharrows and some signage, and there are differences of opinion regarding the value of temporary markings. At this point, what we decided to move forward based on really the City of Tempe's values is to go to the community with a significant outreach through using the programs that Shauna Warner and her team have adopted to ensure that anything that we do there will end up being disruptive during construction and may or may not be supported by the entire neighborhood, right? So we want to make sure we get as much input as possible, and that wherever we land with respect to the infrastructure, that it supports, as Michael mentioned, that it supports traffic circulation and deliveries, and the use of driveways and how does community feel about on-street parking. So we need to get all of that feedback. Jill is moving forward with starting that effort. She has some funding. She asked engineering to set up a contract and get a consultant on board. So while I think that the opportunity to get something on the ground before the opening of the cul-de-sac is that opportunity does not exist. The timing of our programs is such that we wouldn't be able to do that. But after while Jill's working on getting something out to the community for input, we can be working, council could be working with the transportation team and with the budget office behind the scenes, looking at the transportation program overall to prioritize projects. So the timing, I talked around your question. The timing is that we're we'll be currently designing, going to the community to ask for their input. And then the council will have the opportunity through the budget process and through conversations subsequent to that to prioritize this against other needs.
So I guess then I'll kind of circle back with a different question then. If the council has, I mean, I'm assuming we're talking about the normal council CIP budget process that takes place in the spring of 2022. So,
Yes.
but the concern I guess I have then is, I mean, from the point of even council approval, if we were to follow that process exactly to a T, how long would it take, do you think, best case scenario, that we would actually get something fully constructed and really have a true protected bike lane on Smith? Like, I mean, how long, after the cul-de-sac property actually opens for business and is fully occupied, would we actually have something physically up and running to protect the bicyclists who are using that lane?
It depends on how long it takes us to do design, and then, and I can get back to you on how long it would take us to do construction. And you understand what those processes are like. We typically budget 1 year in the CIP for design and the subsequent year for construction. But if the council's wishes were that we fast track something, I could certainly come to you with a fast track timeline.
Okay, that would be my preference personally. I mean, just because, I mean, and I can obviously look to my colleagues to see exactly what they want to do. But from my perspective, I would like to fast track that. I don't, I don't want a situation where we've got people who have all, more or less signed something saying that I'm going to live in this car-free community, and it's a huge thing for them, but it's also huge for the city of Tempe and frankly putting us on the map internationally. And the last thing I would want to see, just because I don't want someone to frankly get hurt, is for someone to get hurt on a bicycle who's coming and going, from cul-de-sac to somewhere else, because we don't have a protected bike lane that actually separates them from oncoming traffic. And so I would personally love to see some kind of a fast-track timeline to see a way that we can really truly speed this up. So, but that's my personal perspective. I'll look to my colleagues to see what they want, but also before I go to Councilmember Navarro and then Councilmember Cubie afterwards, I'm really looking, when it comes to the full master plan of Smith, to talk about laying fiber, autonomous vehicles, the smart metering for the parking, EV charging stations, and also energy efficient street lights, along with that protected bike lane to truly make sure that the Smith Industrial Innovation Hub lives up to its billing. Let me next go to Councilmember Navarro.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I appreciate your comments, and I totally agree with the innovational style that you're giving us in terms of getting outside that box for sure. Agree. I think even to go a little bit further is the future of what might come down. So having the ability to not only just having the fiber in there, but the potential of any other needs within that corridor and area. Maybe it's cut out box. Funneling for whatever different type of unique structure needs to go within the ground, having the ability to have that access that doesn't cause too much construction. It's already laid in there. It's already ready to expand. It's just the ability to think for the future, and that's what this whole project's all about. Just be able to think for the future. And to your point, I absolutely agree on the bike lanes. This is one of the streets that I foresee, obviously with the cul-de-sac being developed and within the community, it's going to be a highly used public area, walking, biking, whatever it may be, and we need to make sure that those things are enhanced. And Marilyn, I do understand, obviously I think that we should have gotten ahead of this a little bit as a council to start implementing the bike lanes further back a couple of years ago. But where we're at right now, I think in the short term, even if we could, the policing of speed cameras or just having motorbikes within that area, obviously as the cul-de-sac does get developed, I think there's some ways that we can hopefully control the situation to make sure that cars and bikes can live together until a bike lane, designated protected bike lane can be developed within that area. And I think that'd be something that staff can explore on what we can do in the short term to make sure that, you know, those people that are going to be utilizing that quite a bit would be felt safe for the time being until we get our development of bike lanes and roadways taken more appropriate for everyone to enjoy. With that said, I hope that as the mayor has alluded to, and I'll go with the right of ways, we do the most extraordinary look and feel of our right of ways, and nothing that, you know, I know within the city and our right of ways, we kind of do some generic things, but I think that this area does qualify for the type of tree, not just the trees that we usually get, and we're seeing them all up and around our community and every other community, but the type of trees, the type of lighting for the trees, the type of design of art mixed in with the right of ways. I mean, this is a one-time opportunity to make sure that we do things right. But when I say it right, I mean, it does last a little bit of the test of time, that we're not doing it and then, you know, 10 years later, we're fixing it. But it can last 20 years, 30 years with good maintenance and good care of that area. You want to think what Tempe Marketplace does with their rights of ways and how they keep up their vegetation within their area. It's kind of what I want to complement what the Tempe Marketplace has down Smith Avenue, but the uniqueness of what the Innovation Hub has to offer. And even to go one step further, Mayor, I think that here's an opportunity. I don't know if the city would be able to do something like this, but if we did have a property within that site, that we could totally have something that's for the community, that's off the grid, something that does not depend on power whatsoever, that has the most uniqueness place for our residents to enjoy, to have something that's very unique, that is showing that we're going one step beyond the fact of not using energy, but using the energy that's provided for us. I know that these are one of the things that we can think about even in our own sites as emergency hubs. If we were in a crisis, that we have areas within our city that actually have the ability to sustain themselves without any help from power companies or any other needs. It's almost the off the grid development for our opportunity as a city and to help others, but also to be utilized for whatever needs within the public for just expanding space, reach out areas, whatever it may be. But I think that that's what this innovation hub is all about, is to make sure that we take the opportunities to do something very unique within this area. This is what I believe is actually going to make us stand alone, not only within our area, but the region, but actually within the nation, and something that we can point to on what people can do and how we can do it. So Marilyn, what I'm saying is, I guess what the mayor and council is, let's be extremely thoughtful of the layout. Let's not, yes, I do want to speed the bike lanes up, but let's be thoughtful. Let's not rush it too much. Community input is extremely important, but this is the kind of a one-time opportunity to get it right. Beveled, planter boxes for trees, so when rainwater does kick into the curbside, it is captured, by the beveled ground cover, that our trees can utilize that water for a time while the rain is gone and dried up. I mean, those are the thoughtfulness, the little detail that we can do within this area. I think this is our true opportunity to make those things happen. So I just do not want to blow it, so to speak. And so I appreciate what you guys have present. I think you guys are on the right page. You guys are getting input. You guys have heard the community. And now here we go. So let's go do it, but let's do it right. So I appreciate that. Thank you, Mayor.
Great. Thank you, Councilmember Navarro. Let me next go to Councilmember Cubie.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I am ever in favor of increased bike infrastructure, especially protected bike infrastructure. And so I believe I'm your fourth for a consensus that would advocate and want a speed track, go on a speed track for the protected bike lanes on Smith. I do note that when the development was approved, the developer received a number of entitlements and was able to put in more units because they didn't have to put in parking or parking garage. And I believe there's been discussions with the developer of a contribution of cost share. And I know that that's in the negotiation stage. And so I'd like to see that happen. I believe the cul-de-sac should be contributing a cost share to help with this effort because they realize benefits from having a car-free community and savings to their business plan from having a car-free community. And I'm hoping we can work in partnership with cul-de-sac. So I'm pleased to hear that that's happening. Would like to just encourage it to happen. And really, we do need to speed this along, and we don't want to have an accident and made to look, not just made to look the fool, but we don't want to have the public safety issues along Smith Road. So I would really want to speed this along. I do want to, and Mr. Mayor, I really agree with all the other innovative aspects that you were arguing for. I don't need to repeat that, but just to add to your consensus. I do want to mention though about the sidewalk improvements, and although I'm fully supportive of that, I do want to point out there are areas of the city where we do not currently have sidewalks, where neighbors have been asking for decades to have sidewalks. I'm thinking in particular of Roosevelt Road between 13th Street and Broadway. And when we had the Roosevelt project go in, there was a lot of neighborhood advocacy for sidewalks on Roosevelt, and that didn't happen. And so, you know, it is an equity issue of where we put our sidewalks, and I think we need to attend to that neighborhood in our CIP before we do any other sidewalk improvements. And there may be a list that I'm not aware of, but I think we really need to look at it through an equity lens as well. But I fully support fast tracking the protected bike lanes on Smith Road, and not just north of the development, but south of it as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Cubie. Let me next go to Vice Mayor Keating.
Thank you very much, Mayor. You know, I certainly agree with adding protected bike lanes and doing everything we can to get them put in place as fast as we can. I appreciated yours and Councilmember Navarro's comments on, you know, making sure the Smith Industrial Hub is a innovative place where we kind of think outside the box, make it kind of one of the many jewels in our city, not only our city, our state, and our nation, as Councilmember Navarro pointed out. Certainly adding sidewalks along that area is important. To Councilmember Kubi's point, and I could be wrong, but I doubt it, Mayor, because as you know, I've never been wrong. But I do think in our CIP there is money for bike lanes and sidewalks down Broadway where there currently isn't as part of the Maker District. So I definitely like to look into that as well. Make sure that I'm accurate on that. But certainly we should do everything we can to make the cul-de-sac, people that are going to move into cul-de-sac and the surrounding area, as safe as possible for those that choose alternative modes of transportation. Also, never mind. That's it. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Vice Mayor Keating. Anyone else from council, any comments?
Hey, Mayor, this is Robin.
Yes, Councilmember Don Savage.
I'm raising my hand, I'm waving at you, but I know you obviously cannot see me, so I will just really quick kind of reiterate a little bit of what I've heard in regards to moving forward with the Smith Innovation Hub. And I just want to, give a great shout out to Marilyn and her team and all the work that they've been doing and the incorporation of all the stakeholders in the area and those that are just really passionate about what they believe in. And I certainly do appreciate people taking the time to hear the presentation and give their feedback so we can incorporate some of those ideas into the design as we move forward. And I want to say Maryland's been really open to trying to figure out the best way that we can improve and ensure some bike safety along Smith Road from the very beginning, and understanding the need to make sure that we are truly multimodal in that area. So Marilyn, thank you to you and your team. I really do appreciate what you guys have been doing. I do agree. I think if we have the ability to do protected bike lanes, I think that's great and fine. I think we all think that's a really good positive thing. I do certainly love the idea of really looking at a comprehensive streetscape improvement. I think that's really important. And for me, that does include the sidewalks, shade, tree boxes, whatever it may be. I think that if we really want to be innovative, Mayor, like you said, and I really do support that and want to encourage that should be part of the design as we move forward. And also, I do want to be cognizant of the budget too. I know when we do different things that we weren't intended, there's not only just the cost for implementation and capital, but also cost for maintenance. And I want to make sure that those are taken into account and that we're looking at those things in the budget, because I think we owe it to our taxpayers to make sure that we follow the process and we're looking at everything comprehensively. So I look forward to it. I'm excited about the design. And like you said, I think Marilyn said too, it's been a really great relationship with economic development. And I know Jill's been really involved, and Donna. So thank you guys for everything that you do. And also Michael for your work. So I'm looking forward to it and excited about what the future holds. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilmember Renato Savage. I'm thinking, so one quick thing, since everyone talked about, a desire to get the protected bike lanes on Smith, but one of the things I'm trying to figure out how we want to do this, but I'm thinking if we talk about at least at a minimum kind of getting the public input process started as soon as possible, it seems like that would be the best thing to do if council agrees, because I understand that, we always want to make sure whenever we're talking about doing things of this nature that we do actually hear from the public and get their feedback to make sure that we're fully informed before we make decisions. Also, as Councilmember Redondo Savage talked about, to make sure that we're being cognizant of the budget and how that might affect the overall CIP. But at a minimum, I guess what I'm sort of asking if we would be willing to do is at least try to really begin to fast track that public input process so staff has that information, and that might help us to really get the protected bike lanes moving a lot quicker. But I think we all know that the public input comes first. So if that's okay, is everyone all right with fast tracking that public input process?
Yes.
Yes, Mayor.
Yes.
Sounds good. All right, wonderful. Thank you, everyone. Appreciate it. And once again, Marilyn, Jill, Michael, thank you for the presentation. A lot of great feedback from council about what they'd like to see go into that innovation hub as we continue to work on the master plan. And, I think there was consensus on a whole number of items, but, really appreciate all the hard work that you've done and just look forward to see what you come back with.
Thank you so much. We appreciate your thoughtful discussion.
Thank you.
you so much.
Wonderful. All right, next up, we have item 2B, City of Tempe Boards and Commissions Engagement Update. And I'm looking at Tim Gomez and Madeline McConville to come up and give us a little presentation. I'm just gonna keep staring at Tim over here like this.
Okay, good evening, Mayor and Council.
The majority of
Well done, Tim. I like that.
Thank you. Yeah, it feels good. The majority of our respondents said that they would feel comfortable joining an in-person appreciation event before summer. So we have earmarked a date in April at TCA for an event to bring that back, hopefully. We don't know what's going to happen with the latest round of the virus, but we hope that's coming back. We also got direction to do name tags for every board and commission member. And we did. Over the summer of 2020, we were able to get name tags for every sitting board and commission member, and then later in December, we got ones for all the new appointees as well. We also did service pins, and service pins we're going to hand out at the appreciation event. We still have those, so to recognize our members that have been service members for 5, 10, or 15 years. And we also did a survey of our chairs and liaisons over the summer of 2020. So with that survey, we actually brought that survey to you at the council retreat in August 2020, and we had further recommendations from you that we engaged on. You guys, as a council, asked us to explore the option for a child care or stipend option. You asked us to explore an option for rotating service. You asked us to look into allowing a youth member to sit on every board and commission. You asked us to initiate a review process for all the boards and commissions to look at their bylaws. And you also asked us to look into ensuring a more equitable distribution of membership across our 5 zip codes. So we took all of that direction when we re-engaged this September, and that'll be what Maddie talks about. Oh, sorry, there's one more. There is no, you're right. So we do have 28 active boards and commissions, and we have 14 advisory boards and commissions. You can hit once, Jason. Twice. So these are your advisory boards. So the ones that don't meet statutory needs, like PSPRS boards, that don't really make sense as an advisory group. They're there to fulfill a distinct function. But the 14 listed here are there to advise mayor and council on policy decisions. So that'll be of importance later on in the discussion. And we have about 275 active members. Okay.
Okay, so, son?
You're on. You're on.
Oh, okay, just doesn't sound like it. So this is the timeline of the project when I took it over with the help of Tim. So in September, we met with all the board and commission's liaisons, had meetings with them, listened to their feedback. And then I also kind of took it upon myself to research what other innovative cities were doing. So cities like Scottsdale and Mesa, but then other cities outside of Arizona, such as like Berkeley, California, and Seattle, Washington, kind of seeing how they treat their members, how they deal with members feeling unappreciated, kind of like the main things that Tempe were dealing with in the survey. So also dealing with equity in action situations, training documents, recruitment methods, all that kind of stuff. Then in October, we had met with all the board and commission chairs, got their feedback, all that kind of stuff. And then in November and December, we sent out an updated survey. We asked them 3 new questions kind of relating to all the feedback that we heard. And then we circled back to the internal working group and kind of finalized our recommendations. Kind of going back to that survey, it allowed chairs and members, but also the liaisons to kind of provide additional feedback, maybe things that they'd forgot about, things that maybe they were too afraid to say, that kind of stuff. And then here we are in January 2022 presenting to you all. Okay, so this is who we met with. So as you can see, we're able to meet with 25 chairs, 20 liaisons, and then our survey respondents was 68. The 68 is made up of 13 chairs, 9 staff liaisons, and 46 members. So through those meetings, we had 7 independent meetings with chairs and liaisons, an average of 11 people in each meeting held. So these 11 people were made up of the chairs, the liaisons, the internal working group that I was talking about, and then also staff from departments that kind of wanted to be represented in those meetings. So staff kind of came from strategic management and diversity, city clerk's office, mayor and council, communications and media relations, neighborhood services, and many more. Again, we were able to meet with a member from each board and commission, or they had an opportunity to fill out that survey. So we really wanted to get everybody's input, and we were able to do that. So these are 2 of the 3 main questions that we had asked. So in that updated survey that we had sent out in November and December, the first question was, do you feel your role as a commission volunteer is valued by the city of Tempe? A good thing is that 0% said none at all, 7% said a little, 34% said a moderate amount, 37% said a lot, and then 22% said a great deal. And then the next one was overall, how do you feel your recommendations are valued by city council? So this one, 2% said none at all, 15% said a little, 46% said a moderate amount, 20% said a lot, and then 17% said a great deal. And this is a third question. So it's kind of the main question that we wanted to get at. We asked people what are their 3 biggest priorities that they feel needed to be addressed from all of the issues that we heard during those meetings. So these were the top 7. So the first one, 57% said they wanted additional interaction between city council, city management with their boards and commissions. So this really consists of having a standard operating procedures to just allow more communication, understand why their recommendations aren't being passed, that kind of stuff. 52% said council members' interaction with boards and commissions. So this is more council members attending meetings, having meetings with council members directly, just having that communications with you all. 32% said boarding commissions are reporting to council committees. So this is one where a boarding commission would be aligned with this specific council committee, ideally one that relates to what they're doing, but it doesn't have to be. This is more so just to have that additional interaction that we were talking about. 32% said collaboration between the boards and commissions, so collaboration with each other, having an avenue or standard operating procedures where they're able to communicate with each other, having that interaction be easier. An example that we heard was maybe sustainability is working on a project that desert conservation would be really helpful with, or historic preservation would be really helpful to have those people to be able to work on those projects together. 28% said recruitment and retention of boarding commission members, so just having new ways, innovative ways to recruit new members, make sure diverse population is represented. 24% said diversity and inclusion of boarding commission members. We'll talk about this later, but just ensuring that there is a diverse representation of people on boards and commissions that accurately represents the city of Tempe as a whole. And then finally, 24% said boarding commissions training and onboarding documents. So this is really just a set of minimum framework for training and onboarding of all members, liaisons, and then even staff, just so they know how boarding commission works, just so they're able to understand basic things that they would need when entering that board or commission. So these are the main findings from, you're good. These are the main findings from the meeting. So these are kind of reflected in the last slide, but increasing the collaboration of boarding commissions with each other. Again, this would just be helpful so members know what other boards and commissions are doing so they're able to collaborate on various projects. The second one, increasing council and city management interaction with boards and commissions. Again, just encouraging council to attend board and commission meetings and just having more ways to interact with you all. And then possibly aligning a boarding commission with a council member or a council committee. Again, this would allow for an opportunity for boards and commissions to communicate with you all and understand why recommendations maybe aren't pursued. The fourth one, increasing volunteers' feeling of being valued and empowered. A common thing that came up with a few members was having an opportunity to update their bylaws. They felt that their bylaws really didn't reflect the current goals and missions that they're currently working on, projects that they're passionate about. This goes along with being empowered. And then also the appreciation event that Tim's going to talk about that kind of aligns with that. The next one, expanding and diversifying recruitment, increasing that diversity again. This could mean adjusting recruitment methods to ensure underrepresented populations are reflected, having an inclusive environment for everyone so everybody is feeling welcome to meetings. This would also help diversify opinions and recommendations that are brought forward by board members to you all. And then this could mean adjusting recruitment methods, targeting specific groups. That was something that was brought up, using word of mouth, social media. And then this was a big one that was a recommendation not only from the chairs and liaisons, but also equity in action. So the next one, allow opportunity for chairs and liaisons to interview applicants. So this would allow them to really, truly understand that applicant. Something that was brought up was that some applicants don't fill out questions, or maybe they twist their answers to get on a certain board or commission. So this would really allow them to understand the applicant as a whole. An equity in action item that was brought up, this would really allow people to discuss their lived experiences over maybe what's on their resume or what's answered on those questions. And then also something that kind of intertwines with this was that the Commission on Diversity or Disability Concerns, she would actually conduct exit interviews, which I thought was really interesting because you can get at why people may leave. This also goes along with retention of members. And then the last one, which is centralized and minimum framework of training for all members and liaisons. Like I'd kind of mentioned, this could go along with maybe an on-demand training, so a video that people could watch whenever they needed a refresher, or having a biannual training for all members and liaisons to get people on a same page.
So now we're at the meat of the presentation, which is our recommendations on how to increase engagement with our boards and commissions. First, we have 3 different banners. The first one is engagement and appreciation. So our recommendation is that we establish an annual chair and council retreat, kind of similar to what we do now with our council retreat that we do once a year, but establish a separate one where we invite board and commission chairs to interact with you on either a policy setting standard to look into the future, or to talk about what happened in the past, or just an opportunity for you guys to get together, similar to what we do at the council retreat. Our second recommendation under this is to recommend that council members act as a liaison to a board and commission. We know that quite a few cities in the valley and across the nation, that is something that council members like to do, is act as a board, as a liaison to a specific board. Now, we have 14 advisory boards, so that could mean 2 boards or commissions each. It really kind of depends on what you want that to look like. If you're interested in pursuing that, there's a lot of different avenues that we can do. And the other one is annual reports to be presented at a council committee. So rather than aligning certain boards and commissions there, give them an opportunity to do a presentation on their annual report at respective council committees that are closely aligned with what they do. I think it'll provide an opportunity for the boards and commissions to really show what they've accomplished over the last year, and for council members to get feedback. So our second banner is recruitment. So we want to expand our annual public information campaign. We've been working with our communications team on what that's going to look like. But frankly, I would say the vast majority of residents in any city don't know what boards and commissions or committees are. They don't even know they exist. They don't know as an opportunity to get engaged with their city, and they're just unaware. So expanding that recruitment, I think, is a low-hanging fruit that we can do, and something we've already started looking at. And targeted recruitment towards underrepresented communities. So getting that word of mouth, just more than just on the social media saying we have openings, just going out there and really just making people excited about the opportunity to join a board and commission, especially those who haven't thought about it before. And our final one is training and development. We recommend that we establish a single department, the city clerk's office, as a central department, as a nexus that all the communication goes through. So one of the main things that we found out that's maybe not surprising, but all of these boards and commissions kind of operate on an island, in a silo. They all operate in their own department with their specific department liaison, and they seldom talk to each other. So that leads to discrepancies in a lot of processes. So minutes, training, just general how they run the meeting. Now, they all have minimum requirements that they have to do from a legal standpoint that they meet, but across the board, a lot of them are run different. So we recommend that the city clerk's office is a central department that communication goes through, or as a hub. At least there's some landing spot for all of them. Our next one is to institute a minimum level of training for all members and liaisons. That includes the equity in action framework. So a minimum level of training. We've noticed that training is all over the place for some of our volunteers. On some commissions had, almost an orientation, a week-long orientation. Some were just given Robert's Rules of Order, and that was it. So we recommend that there be a minimum, and then boards and commissions can kind of go on and train in different areas that they think they need to expand on. But there should be a minimum for everyone to be trained on. We also recommend establishing a mentor-mentee program, kind of like the City of Tempe does for employees. This could offer an opportunity for our acting boards and commission members to talk to each other, to learn from each other, to one mentor, one mentee in a pretty established program like we have here for city employees. And our last recommendation is that we empower boards and commissions to really refresh their bylaws, or give them an opportunity to look at what they're doing now. Is it encapsulated in their bylaws? Is there something that they're doing that's not on their bylaws? Or is there something that's on there that they don't do anymore? Just give an opportunity to kind of refresh. And with that, we'll take any questions.
Thank you, Tim. Thank you, Maddox. Appreciate it. Let me go to Councilmember Garland.
I just have to say, I'm so doggone excited that you guys brought this to us today. Being a past commission member, there are a lot of these issues that when I was reading through your presentation, I was literally sitting at my desk going, yes, yes, they're going to listen. Because, a lot of the times you do sit on these commissions, and I on mine, the Neighborhood Advisory Commission I sat on with Hannah Moulton-Belloc, is feeling like we were just warming a seat, and I don't ever want to feel that, and I don't want anybody else to feel that too. So I really appreciate the time that you guys took to not only talk to the chairs, but talk to other commissioners and really listen to them. And, I do think, I really like the idea of bringing our council members closer in liaison position or attending the meetings. I've been to, out of those 14, I've been to 10 of those commission meetings so far. There's 4 I haven't got to yet. But I really think that it's important for us to have that, because when we were sitting on a commission, only one time in the 2 years that I was on the NAC, we had somebody from the council attend. So I think that's really important. And on that survey that they took as part of, like, do you feel valued, or do you feel like your recommendations are being listened to? If I was to do that survey sitting on the commission, when I was sitting on the commission, I would have been either moderate or lower than moderate. So I completely felt what they were feeling when they were filling this thing out. I think talking about the minutes, if you try to read the board's minutes, because we get those with our council packet, all the minutes are different. They're all written different. The votes are written on there differently. So when I go through and I try to read those, it takes a little bit of time. It'd be great if they were streamlined. So I appreciate that going through, or your recommendation to go through the city clerk's office, because I think that would make it a lot easier for us. I think also teaching the people who are taking the minutes how to do them the same, that would be a lot easier. I agree. The same thing with the annual report. I remember that we would start the annual report sometime in the middle of the year, knowing that it's got to be turned in by the end of the year. And it took up so much time to do that annual report. It would also be great if we would be able to find some way to make that something like a fill in the blanks. And so we could fill in that specific information. Again, all of it's the same. If you look at the annual report booklet that we get at the end of the year from all of the boards and commissions, there are some that are 3 pages long and there are some that are 12 pages long. So being able to streamline that, I think, would be really helpful. Let's see, I also think that I think it's really important for the chairs to review the applications, like you had mentioned, because I think they know what's best for their committee. They know what they need on their committee. They know who they need. I think that's a great idea. So I definitely think we should be doing that. I like the idea, the boards and commission members, possibly something else to think about is maybe having them go on game night on the trolleys, so that they have an opportunity to be able to talk about all the boards and commissions, but they can be a part of that process also and do more outreach to the community. I love adding the youth member, if that's possible. And then I was wondering about the Transportation and Arts Commission. They're the only ones that have a dedicated revenue service, so I'm not sure if their presentations to the council should be different, set up differently than the other ones, so that might be something to kind of think about. I think that's it. That's all the notes I wrote. But you guys did a great job. I am so impressed with what you did, and hopefully we will take those recommendations and we will really make a difference and a change to our boards and commissions, and let them know that all those commission members, that we appreciate them so much. And the party, I think, gathering together is great, but I think it'll also give them the opportunity to stand in front of us and tell us what they really want. So I really appreciate that. So thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Garland. Let me next go to Councilmember Adams. Councilmember Adams? All right, let me go to Councilmember Navarro, and then I will come back around. Or I will just talk for the rest of the session, which I am more than capable of doing for people who know me. Let's see. Councilmember Navarro.
Looks like we lost our WebEx sound interface with this room. It's working in WebEx. Yeah, it's working. She can hear it in WebEx. We just can't hear it in here.
All right. Well, I'll make comments in a second, and I'll circle back around because yeah, I think they're probably talking, but we can't hear them for whatever reason. I don't know why. So here's my first of all, I could say probably ditto to everything that Councilmember Garland just said, which is what I was going to say. I was going to hold it till everybody else went, but now I'm going to say it right now. Okay, cool. I will circle back around to them in a second then. But I mean, honestly, no, I totally agree. I served on the Transportation Commission for 2 years prior to getting elected to the City Council. And it was a really good experience that taught me a lot about, obviously, not just transportation needs, but how board and commission members sort of function and operated with council members and staff. But I also agree that the needs of boards and commissions have changed over the years. And I think that this process is frankly a very necessary one to make sure that we are really updating this to make this something that's really, truly beneficial to the people who give up their volunteer time, time away from work, time away from their families, to really support our city and provide a lot of expert opinion and a lot of opinions from really on the ground in our neighborhood. So I think the feedback and the input we get from our board members and our commissioners is truly invaluable, and I appreciate their service. And so I could really go on, but I could just say, honestly, just ditto to everything that Councilmember Garland said. I was very excited to see this presentation, and I think it's exciting that we're talking about doing this. I think that the more input our board members and our commissioners have into the process is frankly great. The more that they actually feel as if they are being heard by staff and by members of council, the better. I am more than happy to, the suggestion of maybe splitting this up where, every council member frankly gets two boards and commissions. Obviously, any council member could stop into a board or commission meeting anytime they want, but I think it's nice to actually have certain ones that are designated to certain council members, so it's their responsibility to attend those meetings and frankly be a liaison between those board members and the rest of the council. I also think it would greatly help to really inform the council committee work that really goes on in the city. So no, I think everything you said, Councilmember Garland, was completely spot on, and I support those recommendations, and I'll look to my colleagues to see if there's more. Let me go back to Councilmember Adams.
Mr. Mayor, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you now.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. I'll be brief. I really appreciate the presentation. I love the idea of meeting together and have been supportive of more interactions since I've been on council. I have received numerous communications from board and commission members that they really didn't feel heard and didn't feel like they made a difference. And that was really concerning to me. And I think a lot of what our action plan is gonna help with them feeling like they're making a difference. I have been trying for a number of years and for an appreciation dinner to be back again. So I'm super excited about that after COVID is gone, hopefully sooner than later. So I'm looking forward to making that happen. Also, I am very concerned about Ms. Moulton's statements. I share some of her concerns as I attended the Neighborhood Advisory Commission at one point and observed some troubling practices. I would ask our city manager to follow up with Ms. Moulton regarding her concerns and circle back with some recommendations. And my first commission that I'd like to serve on is the Neighborhood Commission for being a liaison. So thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm done.
Thank you, Councilmember Adams. I love you calling your shot right here in the meeting, so in a very public forum. Let me go to Councilmember Navarro.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I think you've already covered it, and just want to say the presentation was great. It was spot on. Being a former Human Relations Commission member, obviously I did appreciate the council listening to us and taking our advice, knowing that it was going somewhere. I absolutely believe that we need to do a better job on making sure that we set these relationships up better and have continual communication with our commissions, as they are a vital, important part of how we make our decisions and get input and feedback. And I think that absolutely the presentation spot on, said that we can do a better job, and I'm supporting it. So thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Navarro. Any other council members have any comments they'd like to add?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, Councilmember Cubie.
Oh, good.
Thanks so much. Thank you, staff, for all this research, and Councilmember Garland. I know this is quite a passion of yours, and Councilmember Adams from your service on the commissions. So I'm glad that we're finally taking steps to make this process more engaging. And Mr. Mayor, I have to give you credit because I noticed a couple of years ago how weighted the appointments were towards a certain gender. It was like 60% men. And that was concern to me. And it's obviously hard to tell race and ethnicity from applications. I believe we now ask for that information. And is that right, staff? We ask people, they don't have to give it, but we ask for that information on the applications.
That's correct.
So that's a step forward, because we really need to have the commissions really look like Tempe and represent Tempe. And since you've been our mayor, Mr. Mayor, we've really seen that transition, that evolution happening. I really thank you for that. I think some of the frustration with some of our commissions is that they give advice and it's actually rejected. And it's not so much the rejection, but the lack of like real deep analysis of it. So I think when we have, and we know when those controversial topics come up, that we should try and more actively engage with the commissions and have them be part of the discussion, whether it's work study or first read or second read, because I think that would be a more robust process and would be more fulfilling for the commissioners. And I obviously like the idea of a liaison as well. And I know I have a sustainability and resilience meeting in my calendar every month. I try and make it. Sometimes you can't, but I think it's really important to have those automatically in the calendars. We did that with events a few years ago. We just automatically put them in the calendars, then you could just reject it. And I think that's a good process to have once each council member maybe identifies with their aide the commissions that they would like to attend before we have, a formal liaison process. But that's a good process to have, so you can always sort of, if you find you have some time, you can attend any commission that seems to be, the circumstances work out to attend. So thanks so much for all that work. I really feel like we're just taking a big step forward here, and we all want people to feel valued, and we want to listen to their points of view and perspectives. And I think we're on the pathway to making that happen in a better way. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Councilmember Cubie. And on a personal note, I really appreciate your comments. It was something I know that you and I had a number of conversations with. I know I've talked with Councilmember Garland a lot about it as well. And so I appreciate you pointing that out about how some of the changes that have happened over the last year and a half. So thank you. I'd also say that one of the biggest things, actually, let me go to other council members first before I make any more comments. Any other council members like to comment on this item?
Yeah, Mayor, this is Robin.
Yes, Councilmember Redondo Savage.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a couple of things, and I just want to first say to Maddie and Tim, you guys did solid work. Thank you so much for the time and energy and the effort that you've put into getting this feedback and thoroughly vetting it out and giving us some great solid recommendations. I know that's not always easy, but it was a really big undertaking. And a lot of these things that you brought forward, the concerns, I mean, they've been concerns for a long time. Not just this last year or two. They've been concerns, I think, that we've all had for 5 or more years. I think, Joel, you'll probably remember too how hard we've really tried to improve application recruitment. That's always just been a struggle and something that's been difficult to do. So if there are some suggestions and some ideas of ways that we can do that, I'm 100% in. I 100% agree that we need to make sure that we have really great quality, diverse applicants that want to be part of this great process that I think is really invaluable to what we do and really important. And it's unfortunate that some people feel, the way they do, but if you look at the feedback overall, it is really positive. But I think the majority of people that serve on our boards and commission feels like they are valued at some level. And I'm really proud of that. And I have to give, kudos to the staff members most likely that are there every single night with those commissions, the boards and committees, and what they do to really make sure that they are engaged and informed and have really good quality meetings. So I want to say thank you to those staff members that continue to do that. Thank you to those volunteers that meet every single month and do bring us recommendations. And I do apologize, sometimes for those that feel like they're not being heard when we don't follow through 100% with their recommendations. And I know sometimes those seats are a little hard. I too was actually back in the day on the bicycle advisory committee, and one of the biggest, most controversial thing, and if Eric Iverson is listening, he will remember this and knows exactly what I'm going to say, is when we put the pedestrian bridge over US 60 and how complicated that was. But the committee at that time really played an integral role of, trying to create understanding within the neighborhoods. And they were really, I think, valuable to that process, as they still are today. So I just want to say, I love the idea of moving forward with a lot of these recommendations. I'm not opposed to that. I understand what Lauren says too, Councilmember Cubie, in regards to you want to make all these committee meetings, and sometimes it's really hard when you can't quite do it. So I really think the idea of trying to align the different committees with the board, the council committees, is a really great idea. Maybe that's a way to break it up, and if there does become a formal liaison type of process in place. I mean, really kind of take into account the alignment of our council committees and how they align with other different committees too. So just food for thought. That's kind of one of the things that I think we kind of got to work through and figure out what works best. Having 14 boards, I just really want to say thank you to each and every one of those individuals that have taken the time, whether you're serving now or you've served in the past. We are definitely a better community because of your input and what you bring to this city. So thank you, Mayor. I look forward to moving forward. And again, just a great appreciation to Maggie and Tim. And I'm pretty sure if you saw Tim's socks, they're probably really lucky. So thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilmember Arredondo Savage. Is there anyone else from council who'd like to speak? Yes, Councilmember Garland.
I just want to say one last thing. I looked yesterday, and there are 6 commissions seats that are available. There's a Family Justice Commission, Fire Public Safety Personnel, Retirement System Board, Police Public Safety Personnel Board, Risk Management Board, and Veterans Commission. So we have 6 seats open that I saw yesterday when I pulled this up online.
Sounds good. Thank you, Councilmember Garland. Anyone else from council? Any comments or questions? Further comments? Just wanted to say, just one last thing I was going to say about this before we close. You know, I really appreciate the staff presentation about this and all the data that was gathered over time. It's really important. I think one of the things I've always talked about is the needs of the people who serve on our boards and commissions continuously changes over time. I remember when I was on the Transportation Commission, I think there was sort of an expectation that we would, you know, we came to the meetings, we provided a lot of input, but at the time that I was there, and I don't want to speak for all the people that I was on the commission with, I don't think there was the same level of expectation that we would have as much direct communication with the staff and especially with the council. But that's obviously very much changed. The board members and the commissioners that are currently serving, and I think we've seen that from the feedback that we received, you know, in the survey that you presented this evening. I think from, you know, from Ms. Moulton-Balek's comments as the chair of the Neighborhood Advisory Commission, that the people who serve on these boards and commissions really do have an expectation that the perspectives and the input and the feedback that they're presenting will not only get to staff, but will get directly to mayor and council. And I think it's something that, you know, I appreciate all the council members' comments that we're really making a commitment to really redouble those efforts and really ensure, as I said before, that for people who are spending time and giving up time that they frankly could be spending at home or with their families or at work or doing a whole host of other things, that feedback and input is truly being respected and incorporated into city decision-making. So I really appreciate everyone's comments from the council about that, and just, you know, frankly, look forward to the adoption of some of these new things that you talked about this evening. But, you know, as we talked about before, really appreciate every one of those members, those 275 people who serve on all of our boards and commissions. And I think we all wanted to say, your opinion and your feedback is really, really valid, and we appreciate your service to the city. And we look forward to, frankly, incorporating even more of what you say into the decisions that the city council makes moving forward. Anyone else? Any other comments? Okay. All right. Hearing none. Thank you so much. Really appreciate it. Next up is item 2C, placemaking signs. And I see Nikki and Isaac coming forward. You have control.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Nikki Ripley, Communication and Media Relations Manager. I'm happy to be here alongside.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the City Council. Isaac Shavira, Transportation Maintenance Manager.
We have just a handful of slides for you tonight because we want to spend most of the time talking about what you'd like to see.
So this evening we'll be talking about placemaking signs that fall within the 2 council priorities. The first one, number 1, is safe and secure communities. And then the second one also is quality of life. Performance measure number 1.27 is really to get to the idea of making sure that our signs and our infrastructure is being maintained adequately. And the second measure, 3.23, as we always talk about in the city of Tempe, making sure that our infrastructure and our right-of-ways are looking pristine, this is in line with that performance measure.
All right, and a bit of establishing of common vocabulary here tonight for purposes of tonight's discussion. When we say entryway sign, what we're talking about is the current existing 29 metal signs that are at the entry points of Tempe, north, south, east, and west. And when we talk about monument signs, we're referring to signs that don't yet exist in the city, but they exist in other cities. You've no doubt seen them. They are typically larger. They can be artistic. They're typically done for branding purposes and not to convey information. I should clarify tonight as a side note that when we talk about monument signs tonight, we're not referring to what the city calls its monument signs at parks and golf courses. Those are those kind of low, almost historic stone and concrete signs. We're not talking about those tonight. Craig Hayton and his parks team do have plans underway to refresh those monument signs.
So as Nikki talked about the entryway signs, a lot of these entryway signs are located north, south, east, west gateway entries to our community. They were installed in the 1990-ish timeframe, and throughout the years, obviously, they've seen their useful life. And in 30 years, we've had opportunities to try to maintain them to the best of our ability. However, as with any other infrastructure, of course, right, has its lifespan. Over time, the vinyl lettering has been added, as you can see in some of these pictures. And then all sister cities, as you can see on some of these as well, all sister cities have been listed on them, including some partnerships such as the Buffalo Wild Wings Bowl and others that I won't mention tonight. But certainly some partnerships have been included in these signs.
So in thinking about refreshing these 29 entryway signs, we kept a number of things in mind. We definitely wanted to achieve a better appearance with them to reflect Tempe's community pride. We wanted to increasingly highlight the partnerships that make Tempe what it is. We wanted to showcase the city brand, both the visual identity and the concepts and pillars that are kind of the underpinnings of who we are. And we wanted to keep cost effectiveness in mind in terms of using the existing signs and keeping longevity in mind with the materials we would use. We definitely thought about how to reflect the city's brand in doing this. The council will remember that in 2017, you approved the branding initiative that took a couple of years to hammer out and entailed a lot of research, asking businesses and community members, even people outside the state, what they thought made Tempe special. That led to some key pillars that we highlight continually. The fact that we're a compassionate community, that we're an energetic place, that we're proud of our ties with ASU, that we do things differently, we stand apart, and we're innovative. We also have a new, or relatively new, city logo and color palette that we wanted to reflect as well. So what you see is a very draft map that depicts where a proposed new series of 8 design themes would go. Starting with the gray dot that you see in 5 locations, 5 prominent north, south, east, west locations that would continue to list all Tempe sister cities. We obviously value that partnership and want to continue highlighting those cities at those key locations. The dark blue dot depicts a new design theme that would feature the logos of key partners like the Tempe Chamber, like Tempe Tourism, and like the Downtown Tempe Authority. Light blue signs, there's 4 of those projected for key locations that would showcase the city's pride in being the home of the Tempe campus of ASU. Signs that exist today on either end of University could do this, as well as close as we can get down at the Research Park. The light green signs are right near Tempe Diablo Stadium, and those would be new design themes that would highlight the fact that we're the home of Angels Spring Training. Purple sign is indicative of our brand pillar of innovation. Dark orange is what I refer to as just branding for branding's sake. It's purely the logo and some visual elements. The light orange dot highlights our compassion theme And then the charcoal dot you see up on the northwest corner of the map, that is intended to refer to the city's land acknowledgement from earlier this year, which commemorated that Tempe resides on the homelands of Native peoples. In your packet, you have all 8 of the very draft entryway sign designs. You're seeing just 3 of them here. These are placeholders. The orange one is the one that holds up our brand theme of innovation. The middle one is that branding for branding's sake version. And the one on the far right is something we're excited to work with the Angels about, where Tempe's identity would continue to be on the bottom and top, and the Angels would be able to sort of play with that middle part. And they're very enthusiastic and excited to be able to do that with us.
So I'm going to speak a little bit regarding the cost to refurbish these signs that we're talking about. In terms of cost, it's about just under $80,000 to refresh the 29 signs that Nikki has talked about briefly. And then in terms of the operating capital budget request, it's 3 opportunities or options that we can look at and that we'd like some feedback from council, and that is if we would like to see an immediate refresh by using contingency funds, with an understanding, of course, that there would be an operating supplemental request along with it so that we can maintain them moving forward. The second is to have a pre-approved supplemental for 22-23, and then lastly, a supplemental that competes with other supplementals that will be submitted in 22-23.
Can I say really quickly, from my perspective, I would say pre-approved. The reality is these are gateways and entrances to the city. The current signs are very worn out. They're not updated with the current crop of sister cities on there. And really, I mean, they're the things that our residents see on their way out, and that even more importantly, visitors see on their way in. So from the the money that's actually being recommended to actually take care of this, I would want to have it frankly pre-approved so we can get these changed out more quickly if possible. I mean, because I look at the new sign and it's beautiful, and quite honestly, I can't wait to see something like that at the gateways of our city. Okay. Councilmember Garland, okay? Anyone else? I didn't want to jump in front of you, but just, I was dying to say that, quite honestly. So
Yes, I agree. I want to make sure you heard that.
okay, Councilmember Garland agrees. So
Just as a point of clarification, when you say pre-approved, do you mean find the contingency dollars immediately or pre-approve it for 22-23?
I think we could probably pre-approve it for 2022-23.
Okay.
I mean, I'm thinking. I mean, we're only talking about another 6 months or so, and.
Okay. Thank you.
Councilmember Garland, you okay with that, or?
Yep, I'm good with that, Mayor.
Okay. Let me go to Vice Mayor Keating really quickly. Okay, we're once again having problems hearing things at the chambers. So I've got Vice Mayor Keating and Councilmember Adams in the queue, but just want to let you know we can't hear anything that you're saying over the phone, unfortunately. So the problem for everybody sitting here or watching at home is the people who are on the WebEx can hear the council members who are virtual, but the people who are sitting here right now can't hear anything. So that is the challenge, unfortunately. We tried again. Vice Mayor Keating?
The audio is being heard on WebEx. We're just not getting it in the chambers.
Okay. Council, give it a second. We're going to try to see if we can get this working again.
Okay. Fair enough.
Thank you.
Let me do this really quickly for council members. I don't know if council wants to speak about this, but if you even could text me, frankly, if you're okay with the concept of actually moving forward with getting this funded for right at the beginning of the coming fiscal year, just send me a text and let me know. Okay. All right. Everyone says they're. I got a couple people saying they're good. They're good. All right. All right. Sounds like we are good from what people are telling me over the phone here.
Thank you.
Yes, Councilmember Garland. Oh, sorry. All right. Let me just. I'll pick someone out. Councilmember Adams. Let's do this, actually. I'm going to do this. Can we take a short recess here to see if we can actually address the AV issues? Because I just want to. So let's break for a second. It's 6:21. Let's come back at 6:30 p.m. Okay. All right. We're going to go ahead and reconvene this meeting. Nikki and Isaac, I think you have a couple more slides left for this presentation.
Yes, transitioning to monument signs briefly. If the council has a desire above and beyond the entryway signage for some additional signature iconic markers, we can definitely do some further research about what it would take to do those. We do have some regional examples of these. Queen Creek installed 6 signs in 2015 at a cost of $1.8 million. They incorporate solar lighting, have a protective coating for graffiti. They're made of copper. Over on the right of your screen, Chandler recently did 9 signs to distinguish West Chandler as an employment corridor. Those 9 signs were done at a cost of $240,000. And you see the picture of Scottsdale's monument signs. There are 13 of those dating back to the 1990s. And before the pandemic, they were looking at refreshing their signage. Some considerations for the council if you do have an interest in monument signs. Certainly determining what you'd like to achieve by doing them, just as we did with the entryway signs. Considering locations and what those choices would be based on, things like traffic volumes or distinguishing employment corridors or special areas. Definitely cost would be a factor in terms of the materials you would use, the size of them, whether lighting's incorporated, and the number you would choose. Considerations around the design process, namely whether you'd like to see public input as part of the process of getting these into the city. Phasing would depend on certainly how you decide to finance them, whether you decide to chip away at a collection of them over time or infiltrate several of them in a more compact period of time. And then maintenance would obviously depend on the materials you use and costs, or the quantity rather. So, council direction, we'd love, now that the entryway sign matter is settled, we'd love to see if you have an interest in monument signs in the future, and then whether you have an interest in a broader signage initiative, if you'd consider, say, the placemaking, the entryway sign project to be kind of a catalyst for additional signage improvements or transitions at places like the City Hall complex or the library complex. This could kind of be regarded as a beginning of additional signage changes and additions. And with that, we're here for.
Mayor?
Yes?
I just have comments.
Sure, please.
I'm definitely in favor of monument signs, particularly at like iconic entrances to the city. I'm thinking, coming across Tempe Town Lake, going south on Mill Avenue there, as you come into the downtown area. I think, a monument sign there in particular would be pretty powerful. All for additional signages at different parts of the city, like we just talked about the Smith Industrial Hub, just to kind of highlight the different areas of the city and the focuses that that, we're putting on them. So, I'm about branding. I do think that the more we can brand our city, the better. I work in Scottsdale, don't hold it against me, but they do have those Scottsdale, Arizona, monument signs everywhere. And it's, I got to say, it's pretty cool. And I certainly hope that Tempe will follow suit. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Mayor Keating. One of the quick things I learned, and I can go to council, is that, so looking at the sort of 3 questions here, there is money for the first bullet here, the current entryway sign plan, which is the first thing that Nikki and Isaac presented. There is money in contingency available if we want to do that now as a council. The monument signs are clearly much bigger and a lot grander and would take a lot more money, so we don't have the money immediately to do those. But at the same time, we could still give the staff direction to move forward with a plan to get those as well. And of course, the conversation about whether or not we want future placemaking phases in other parts of the city, such as City Hall or the community complex or other entryways. But let me try to take these all individually. Is the council interested in going ahead on the first item, the current entryway sign plan for the first signs we saw, and going ahead and approving that right now since we have the money?
Yes.
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 Okay. Sounds good. Thank you very much. We have consensus on that item. The second one, sort of going back onto what Vice Mayor Keating just said, is there an interest in doing future monument signs like a lot of other cities like Chandler and Scottsdale have done?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, but I'd also like to make sure that we are having our neighbors participate in the selection process and the designs.
Mayor, with that said, yeah, absolutely on that. And then just absolutely, as this is not, in my opinion, I would like to get specific locations, just like Councilmember Keating stated, traffic volume, whatever it may be. But there are certain points, the entryway in the Tempe, going across the Middle Avenue Bridge area. So a thoughtful process. I'm not opposed to just doing one at a time as we get the money, but I want to make sure that how we do it is artistically has some real value to it and real pop as you come across the city. So I would like for us to really be mindful of trying to take our time on that.
Sounds good. Thank you, Councilmember Navarro. Let me go to Councilmember Arredondo Savage, then Councilmember Garland.
Hey, thank you, Mayor. Much appreciated. First, I just want to say thank you to Nikki and Isaac. Isaac, I don't know if I've ever seen you up here giving a presentation, but very fine, nice work. So thank you both for this information and all the input, because I know those signs out there are tired. So I'm excited that we're going to go ahead and move forward with the entryway signs. That's great. I agree with the Vice Mayor. I think we need to do some of those monument signs and really kind of be thoughtful about where they might go. And I love that one that you showed, Nikki, that was the tall one. I thought that was pretty cool. I like that. I'm not opposed to community involvement. I think that's a really good thing. I love to get that feedback, but at the same time, I really just want to make sure that I'm not sure if Joel was the one that said that or Randy, just about making sure we have some consistency and synergy and they're really showing a pop across the city and we're really branding who we are. So that's going to be something that's really important to me. And there's one thing really quick, Mayor, on the Tempe Sister City sign, which I love, which I do think it's a lot of writing, but I love the importance and I think it's so cool that we do that. I think for educational purposes, would it be possible, I don't know, Isaac or Nikki, to actually mark on that map that's on that sign where those locations are, like with a star or something, just so some of the people that may not know, maybe if they're walking by, they would see it and maybe get a little education at the same time and see how many partnerships we really have across the world. So just my 2 cents on that. But besides that, I'm all in. I think it's great. And I love the idea of monument signs moving forward. I think they will look really cool and spruce up our city. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank
Mayor,
you,
to that point.
Oh, yes.
I agree with Councilmember Arredondo Savage about, adding a star or something to indicate where the cities are, but also maybe a QR code that not for every city, or maybe you could do every city that kind of, gives information about that city or about the Sister Cities program, in general. Thank you.
Sounds good. Thank you. I definitely support that recommendation as well. As a total geography nerd, I am totally on board with that. Anyone else from council? Any comments?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes. Let's see. Councilmember Adams and then Councilmember Cubie.
Okay, just a couple things. I really am excited about continuing to support the sister cities on our signs. And I like the idea of having the attachment to it so people can find out about sister cities and where they're located. I think that sounds totally cool as somebody that likes to travel. And I'm just excited about new signs because every time I enter the city, they look really run down. Also, the Queen Creek signs look great. I'm interested in the monument signs. And then the final section is on the commissions. You couldn't hear me, but I was thinking more about the commissions that we talked about earlier, and so many that I would like to attend. And I think it'd be good to rotate so council gets to go to all the commission meetings at some point, so we can learn a lot about them and give them kind of a personal touch that I feel like they need. So thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councilmember Adams. Let me go to Councilmember Garland since I mistakenly skipped over her, and then I'll go to Councilmember Cubie.
No, that's all right. I do like the idea of the stars. I talked to Nikki about that earlier in the week. And I think that is a really good idea to put on that map. But one of the things that I wanted to say is about the monument. So I'm in complete support. And I in 2015, when my son was picked for Sister Cities to go to Trollhättan in Sweden, I remember calling and talking to somebody on council and saying, how come Trollhättan Sweden is not on that list, on that monument? You know, and by the way, some of the monuments look kind of yucky. So it's nice that I'm glad that we're doing this. And I know the Sister Cities, I think, will be really excited about seeing what it looks like with this new sign on there. Regarding the monuments, I wonder if we could look at, and just a thought, you know, something consistent. So all the signs, monument signs that we put up look the same, but maybe doing something that's specific to the character area right below it, so that you're not only just going into that neighborhood, but I think it was Councilmember Arredondo Savage that said something about Smith Innovation Hub, or maybe it was Vice Mayor. But I like the idea of the character areas, because not a lot of people know that we have character areas and what they mean. That might be kind of cool. Anyway, just a suggestion, but thank you so much. I love this presentation, and I am so darn excited about it. And I think the innovation monument, the sign that you have, I think that is really cool. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Garland. Councilmember Cubie.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Regarding the monument signs, I would like to suggest that we have a local artist competition. If not Tempe, then just a regional artist competition. And I would be much more interested in not just duplicating our logo, because our logo could be dated and could be changed. I think we need something a little more classic. As Councilmember Adams said, the Queen Creek sign really jumped out at me as something really classic, something that would last and be sort of representative of our time, you know, and not something that's you know, logo which could change in 10 years. And I think the logo itself, you know, with all the different bright colors, doesn't really work as a monument sign. It may work in other ways, but not as a monument sign. So I would suggest that we have it be a competition amongst local artists to come up with an iconic monument sign that's representative of our city. Thank you.
Sounds good. Thank you. Another great suggestion. Thank you, Councilmember Cubie. Anyone else from council? Comments or questions, feedback? Okay, excellent. So it sounds like, you know, we've got consensus to move forward on funding the entryway signs immediately, since we've got the contingency funding to do so. There was definitely an interest by council and obviously continuing to pursue the monument signs as well. It's a little bit of a bigger expense, but we'd have to talk about exactly where those would go and what the final price tag might be. But I think there were some great suggestions in there about engaging with, you know, with local artists to kind of create something truly iconic, but really finding ways to continue to brand Tempe and make things pop throughout our city. So we should definitely go forward with that as well. And then same thing in terms of looking at things like City Hall and the downtown and the community center, seeing if we could explore doing some additional signage there as well. And I think some of, you know, Councilmember Cubie and Councilmember Arredondo Savage's suggestions could also go over there as well in terms of engaging with local artists and trying to find ways to do something truly creative and innovative. So sounds like we've got consensus on all three to move forward. In case anyone has anything else they want to add before we close down.
Thank you, Mayor and Council.
Thank you.
Thank you, Nikki. Thank you, Isaac. All right. Next up, we have item 2D, the Community Development Block Grant Home Investment Partnership, Home ARPA, and Emergency Solutions FY 22-23 Planning. And I see Naomi Farrell and Levon Lamey. Great that we thought we were going to have them virtually, but we get in-person performances this evening. Much appreciated. We love seeing you both.
You want to do the, yeah. Right, okay. Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm Naomi Farrell, Human Services Director, with Levon Lamy, Deputy Director of Human Services over the Housing Division. This evening, we'll be presenting a review of the FY 22-23 Annual Action Plan, which includes the recommended activities to be funded using Community Development Block Grant, Home, Emergency Solutions Grant, and Program Income for the FY 21-22 Action Plan. In addition, we will go over one-time American Rescue Plan funds. A little bit of history. The federal regulations do require a 5-year consolidated strategic plan. The current plan is was adopted in FY 20, so we're in year 3. Additionally, an annual action plan is required that establishes the upcoming year's planned activity priorities. The annual action plan also shows a progress report of the prior year. You can find that information in your packets. This falls under City Council's strategic priority, Sustainable Growth and Development, Performance Measure 4.09, achieve a housing inventory ratio for affordable, workforce, and market rate housing. It's important that we look at what the current priority needs are. To do this, we went through a year-long process to establish and identify priorities. It was important that we reach out to the populations that are served through these programs, and we were able to target about 900 respondents. Priority needs identified were affordable rental housing, affordable ownership housing, homeless needs, and public service needs. Some of the programs on the second column are put in place to address the priority needs. Homeless prevention and emergency assistance, housing repair, housing development and reconstruction, and emergency assistance. I'm going to turn it over to Levon at this point to go over more details as far as the recommended activities.
Good evening. So for the initial recommendation of the proposed community development block grant activities, this year's estimated allocation for fiscal year 23 is $1,940,521, which is a slight increase over prior year. We would request and recommend that the maximum amount of the grant, 20%, $388,000, be utilized for the program administration. This is what covers staff salaries, paper, pencils, paper clips, the overall administration of the program itself. Also keeping in mind, these are HUD categories, so when we kind of get into some of them, the category may not exactly match up in your mind with what we're talking about as far as the actual activities. So for the public service activities, that amount is listed at $190,000. That is capped by statute for the amount we can put towards public service activities. Historically, what has been utilized for what these funds have been utilized for is partly for the Hope Outreach Team for basic necessities and needs as they work with the homeless population. And then a portion of these funds had been put out for a Notice of Funding Availability, or NOFA, for nonprofits to apply for that would then, it could help with, the congregate shelters, it could help with the domestic violence shelters, any of the public service and shelter type activities. What we are requesting and proposing this year is that we not utilize those funds as we historically have. With the recent acquisition of the 40-unit motel that will be utilized as temporary transitional housing, we would ask that this full 190 go towards the operation of that facility. It still is being utilized for the same populations: homelessness, preventing homelessness, folks fleeing domestic violence. But this does allow us to cover the part of the operating cost of the building, the lights, the water, the gas, so that we're kind of keeping that within the allocated budget authority as much as possible. Moving into emergency repairs, this is a repeat allocation, $378,393 of last year's allocation. Now, with COVID in the last couple years, we had greatly slowed down on the emergency repair program. We were really only focusing on life, health, and safety issues, heaters, air conditioners, water heaters, things that really absolutely had to be done at that time. Roof leaks, minor plumbing leaks, things that could be postponed were postponed, partly because participants weren't entirely comfortable with contractors, coming in and out of their homes. Contractors were trying to figure out how to, get their safety and PPE plans in place. So, at this point, we've kind of got the program up and going again. Everyone's got their safety plans in. Families are much more comfortable. So we absolutely feel confident we're going to be able to blow through the current waiting list and be advertising the program utilizing all of these funds in this coming year. For acquisition, this is an increase over last year. Last year was 700 and some odd thousand for acquisition. We would propose $934,024 for acquisition this year. These are the funds that are primarily utilized for the acquisition of units that will be restricted for permanently affordable rental housing with the affiliate. So given, rent increases and what the market's doing, it did seem like it would make reasonable sense to apply a little more money into the acquisition to preserve and create more affordable housing. With the $50,000 for workforce development, this is the position that is a shared position between Tempe Human Services and Maricopa County Human Services for the Workforce Development Coordinator. And we would be recommending and requesting a renewal of the $50,000 to maintain that position and continue it moving forward. So that would round out the CDBG activity proposals and funding estimates. Moving into the home program activity proposals, again, we would request that the maximum allocation of 5% of the entitlement be utilized for administration costs, staff salaries, paper pencils, paper clips. In light of the last few years, we have utilized all of the funds and reallocated all of the funding to the tenant-based rental assistance program. We would ask and request that the entire $507,000 that is available continue to be allocated towards tenant-based rental assistance to continue providing that ongoing and enhanced rental assistance for families. As part of the program, we did have $468,000 in program income over last year, 21-22. As we have done in the prior years, and especially lately, we are requesting and recommending that the full 468 be put towards the tenant-based rental assistance, which would create a total of $975,000 available for the year to continue and enhance that program, which this would support roughly 100 families, plus, depending on the individual facts and circumstances. So that would round out the entitlement plus the program income. For the ESG program or Emergency Solutions Grant, this is funding that is specifically restricted for homelessness needs and addressing homelessness. The allocation is estimated to be $157,335. Again, we would request to utilize the maximum allocation for program administration, $17,307. That does leave $140,028 to go towards homelessness prevention, diversion, and addressing homelessness. Again, with this $140,000, we are requesting that we utilize these funds to help also with the operation of the temporary transitional housing facility, the 40-unit motel that was acquired. Between the 190 from CDBG and the 140 from Emergency Solutions Grants, based on the operating expenses that are anticipated, these two funds would all but cover the anticipated operating expenses so that we wouldn't be looking to supplement that facility with any type of other funds.
Sounds good. Quick thing before you go on. Councilmember Adams, you have a question?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm all about getting the money directly to the individuals that this affects, but I do have a question about the administration fees over $388,000. I just have to have clarification on that. Can you explain that high total?
So that is the, Councilmember Adams, that is the total amount of program administration from these grants. For these programs with these entitlements, we fund all staff salaries through the administrative fees from these federal grants. There is no general fund that goes towards supporting these salaries or the administrative costs. So that is what these funds go towards.
Just a follow up. So the administration fees, they are consistent with other grants and things like that, Levon?
Yes, ma'am. For these specific entitlements, they are.
Okay. Thank you for the clarification. I really appreciate it.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Okay.
Sorry.
So moving into new items. So community development block grant, home, and ESG. Those are discussions that we have every year. They're recurring entitlements, and those are the requests and repeats of the funding allocations. Home ARPA, or the American Rescue Plan Act, provided funding that came through HUD through the home program that is, at least at this point, one-time funding. We're not expecting another allocation of this. With this is an initial discussion of what the funding uses are and a request for input, not only from public, but from mayor and council as to how they would like to kind of see these funds used. Again, because we do use these, the admin fees from these programs to cover staff costs, we would request and ask for the administrative fee on here to cover any staff that would be required for administering this program. But these funds are utilized for primarily homelessness prevention. So there is a quite hefty restriction put on these funds from HUD. They can be utilized for acquisition. They can be utilized for acquisition for affordable rental housing. They can also be utilized for acquisition for non-congregate shelter that would then be transitioned into higher density multifamily affordable housing. The issue with acquiring units that we have now. So in reality, in Tempe, there's no such thing as an empty apartment building. So if we wanted to use these funds to buy apartments or a duplex to create affordable housing, we would need to relocate those families because these funds can only be utilized for qualified populations. Homeless, on the verge of homeless, McKinney-Vento. So, you know, that in and of itself kind of doesn't make a lot of sense, at least to us, to acquire a property that has someone in it to have to relocate them. But what these funds also can be used for that are a little bit more consistent with what we have been doing is they can be utilized for the acquisition of non-congregate shelter, so a motel. With that, we do have the ability to do the scrape and replace for the higher density multifamily with the long-term affordability restrictions. These funds also can be utilized for conversion. So again, for instance, if we acquired a motel, we wanted to convert that building into a temporary transitional or into a single room occupancy housing unit, we could use these funds to put in a secondary sink and a kitchenette so that it would actually qualify as a housing unit because it has 2 sinks and a kitchen. These funds, again, speaking for fixed assets and one-time large purchases, these funds can be used for adaptive reuse. So if we had a building that had not been utilized for housing before, you know, that could be acquired and we could use these funds to do adaptive reuse and turn it into housing. So if we had a big vacant building, put up some walls, you know, put the HVAC in, we could use that. So those are the fixed asset applications of these funds. The other piece is these funds can definitely be used for supportive services. And again, it's qualified populations, homeless, on the verge of homeless, McKinney-Vento, population 0 to 30 income, AMI incomes. But we're looking at life skills, housing navigation, assistance with finding affordable units, mental health, substance abuse, some of the co-pays that would go along with those things. So there are some, definitely with one-time funds, there is the ability to do another acquisition with the long-term impact. There's also the ability to enhance the supportive services to ensure folks have all the supportive services that they would need. We do have a time limit on spending these funds, so we would, if we were using it for supportive services, they would have a 5-year lifespan. And I'll stop there. So,
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, Councilmember Cubie?
Yes, I have a question. Those funds, Levon, would mobile home dwellers be eligible for any of those funds? Because I know sometimes mobile home dwellers have different barriers to financial assistance.
Councilmember, it is possible. It would depend on the individual facts and circumstances and whether or not they were on the verge of homelessness, 0 to 30% AMI, and exactly what they were looking for with it. If it was for the supportive services, as long as they were one of the qualified populations, they would absolutely be able to avail themselves of the services being provided.
And I know we often have a wait list for the emergency repair funds. And I'm wondering, we talked about this when you and I and Naomi met with Councilmember Garland last week, but we think of those who are most vulnerable that maybe are in the shadows, that don't have the opportunity to apply for funds or afraid to apply for funds, that but there's great need there with just, getting trees removed from properties that are code violations, and trees that have died, that have come down and people can't afford it. And I didn't realize that emergency repairs assistance could be used for that. Since we have a big waiting list for that source of funding, is it possible to put more money into that pot, to take some of the funds you're talking about and put it into the emergency fund?
From the home ARPA funds themselves, no, that would not be an eligible use of those funds. However, we could go back and look at the community development block grant allocation, and pardon me while I back up. And we would be able to, we absolutely have the ability to reallocate from within the buckets that we currently have. So if council wanted us to reduce acquisition and increase emergency repairs, we would absolutely be able to do that. Public services, we have the ability to reduce, but we did set that at the maximum percentage allowable for that. It would, if council so desired, we could reduce the program administration to increase emergency repairs. But I would remind that is how we pay for staff and paper and pencils. So,
sure. Well, Mr. Mayor, could I ask that we just, maybe it's in a Friday packet where we just get sort of a detailed look at the emergency repair assistance program and how much need there is, what the waiting list is, before we make that decision? Because I don't think we can make that decision tonight.
Can you say that one more time? I'm just trying to make sure I'm trying to make sure, Councilmember Cubie, I'm tracking with your request. Can you repeat that one more time?
Sure. Well, just the emergency repairs, that perhaps we could consider increasing it if there is a backlog. And we know that oftentimes people who are the most knowledgeable about assistance tend to apply, and then people who don't necessarily know about it, there's great need, but they're in the shadows and they may not know how to apply. So we don't truly know what the need is. But I'm wondering if we could revisit that one section, the emergency repairs section, and just see what we've spent in the past, and like what's backlogged, what kind of waiting list we have. And it may be an area that we need to supplement more.
Sounds good. Thank you, Councilmember Cubie. I see Naomi and Levine kind of nodding their heads to what you're saying, so I guess I'll let them address.
Yeah, we definitely could get that information out to you. This is the first public hearing and first comment period, so we do have time to gather that information and make some decisions.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Anyone else from council? Comments? All right.
Hey, Mayor, this is Robin.
Yes, Councilmember Redondo Savage.
Calling from above. Hello, Mayor.
Hello.
Councilmember Garland. How are you?
Yes.
Hey, just a couple of things. It's just every time I see these presentations of what we do with our dollars, whether they're, the CBD dollars, our home dollars, the dollars that we get to really help all of our populations in the city of Tempe, it just really makes me so proud of the resources that we allocate, and just grateful for our staff members. So Naomi and Levon, thanks to both of you and your team, because I get it. It really has taken a village to make this work. And And we have been able to do a lot, Mayor, pretty much like since you've been here and this last year, we've made some really drastic changes and intentionally trying to make an impact where we all believed an impact was needed, not only with the Hometown for All, but a couple of very large properties that are really going to make a difference in our housing inventory. And the one thing that I would ask, and I don't know how you go about doing this, Levon and Naomi, is I know we have a comprehensive plan moving forward in regards to housing, in regards to how we are helping and assisting our in-shelter neighbors and what that looks like. And I think that you guys have had to really pivot, for a better word. I'm just sure that the mission has evolved so much with everything that we've pretty much put in your laps this last year. And I do think that it takes all of our remarkable partners to be able to make this happen. I mean, we're so grateful for just your comment in regards to the partnership that you have with the county. And we know all of the nonprofits that are so generous and grateful here in the city of Tempe. I'm wondering, would it be wise to maybe have a little bit of more dialogue with our partners to just really make sure that we give them an update on our mission and our goals, and we share what some of our concerns are, our needs and the gaps? Because I don't really ever talk to them all together. I know a lot of us probably have conversations or relationships with people in a lot of these nonprofit organizations, and they do really great, awesome work. But do we ever bring everybody to make together just to make sure that we're really all aligned and we have the same message and we're working for the same goals, and what they do and they do well works within our chain to be able to achieve that mission? I'm just wondering, would this be a really good time to just reevaluate and have that conversation again?
Yeah, I believe it would be, and I think we would coordinate with TCC. They just did the community needs assessment themselves, and some of the priorities that you heard today align with that needs assessment. And so they will be coming together with nonprofits and other partners to have further conversations. So I think that would be the ideal time to coordinate that and work together. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
Excellent. Thank you, Councilmember Redondo Savage. Anyone else? All right, proceed.
So with this home ARPA with the $2.2 million, again, this was the initial presentation of the funds and what their uses are. This is what the estimated entitlement already allocated to Tempe is. Moving into the next slide, there is a potential that we would be able to receive an additional reallocated amount of funding of $1.4 million. With that, this funding would be subject to the same rules as the home ARPA with our own entitlement. So there would be program administration. It can also be utilized for the acquisition of affordable housing with the same restrictions, or it could be utilized to pay for services or for acquisition of hotels. But as there is the potential and possibility of a reallocation of the 1.4, we did want to make sure we got it in with the first public hearing and presented the information so that Mayor, Council, and the public had the ability to hear both our entitlement, the potential of an additional reallocation, and then provide input as to how they would like to see one and or both of these pots of funding being utilized, whether it's a large acquisition or services or a blend or whatever that might look like.
Let's see.
And
that concludes.
And that will conclude the presentation.
Okay.
Sorry.
Sorry, I didn't know if you were looking for feedback on
No,
that specific
yeah.
item or if there was more, so. Levon, to that last one about, the sort of, you talked about the potential ability for another 1.4, so there'll be more information forthcoming about what that might look like for council?
Yes, sir, there are some things that we would have to work through. We would be coming for a conversation on January 13th at executive session with council to go through what the specifics and the requirements would be in order to be able to do the reallocation and or accept the reallocation.
Okay. Sounds good. So council, you have more information forthcoming, but no, thank you, Levon. Appreciate the clarification on that. Anyone else from council, any comments or questions for Naomi or Levon? From my perspective, very comprehensive presentation as always. I just think, And once again, thank you, Councilmember Arredondo Savage, for your compliment as well. Really appreciate it. I think that this council's done a tremendous amount of work over the last year and a half with the help of Levon and Naomi and Paul in terms of really advancing a lot of the work that we're doing in human services and affordable housing and transitional housing. So I just really appreciate, everyone's support sitting up here, and obviously to our exceptional staff for the work that they're doing. I've had an opportunity, I think I might have mentioned this a few months ago, but I had an opportunity back in late August, I believe it was, to go down to the Arizona Housing Forum, which is put on by the Arizona Department of Housing. And Levon and Naomi and I all went down there, Paul, and just quite honestly, Tempe really is the talk of the town when it comes to a lot of the work that we are doing in the affordable housing arena. It's amazing the stuff that I hear from other council members and mayors from other cities, but also from other residents who said, God, I really wish that our city was doing as much to be as proactive as the city of Tempe is. And it's frankly a total team effort between city council and staff. So I just really want to say thank you to everyone who's been involved in this. We are really moving the needle and making a difference in a lot of people's lives. So I just wanted to say thank you.
Mr. Mayor, I just have to echo what Councilmember Arredondo Savage said about how much progress we're making and what a great job you're doing. It's so exciting to see things get done, and under your leadership, you're rocking it. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Councilmember Adams. I appreciate that. All right, thank you so much. Really appreciate it. All right. Next up here, item 2E, code enforcement on commercial and multifamily properties. And that would be Jeff Tamulevich, who I think is probably online virtually.
Okay, can you hear me?
I can. I was going to say, Jeff, you're so good at your job, you might have already solved all these things. That might make for a short presentation.
Thank you. All right, well, I appreciate it. My name is Jeff Tamulevich. I'm the Code Compliance Administrator. Just appreciate the opportunity, Mr. Mayor and council members. At the November 17th, 2021 work study session, council requested an update regarding code compliance's enforcement measures for the replacement of dead and missing landscaping on commercial and multifamily properties. And you can keep it on this slide. Code compliance established a performance measure, which is 3.01, the code compliance assessment score. This measure is a self-evaluation tool that helps to show the council and residents, just how the code compliance division is performing. This assessment score encompasses 4 key components that allows us to understand how well the code compliance division is impacting the city of Tempe. Components are the satisfaction levels of our residents, the satisfaction levels of our businesses, an examination of the actual condition of the city, and the number of properties in violation with our codes. To attain this score, the Code Compliance Division performs a series of audits and a series of surveys, and then combines them together for an overall score. Our performance measure is currently at a 63.76, and then our target by 2040 is 85%. Next slide. Back in 2019, the Code Compliance Division received direction from the council to focus on street side landscaping. In response, inspectors proactively addressed dead and missing vegetation violations visible from the arterial streets, while also reactively addressing all other complaints. In October, during that same year, the Tempe Business Survey results were released. It revealed a 9.5% decrease in satisfaction by the business community of the enforcement of codes and ordinances. At that time, the code compliance team transitioned one residential inspector to a commercial inspector to address the new demands, basically increasing the number of commercial inspectors from 2 to 3. This change allowed us to keep up with the growing number of reactive complaints, while also increasing proactive counts created for arterial street frontages. Next slide. What you're looking at here is a comparison between 2 commercial inspectors versus 3 over the last 4 years. In 2018, 2019, there was a total of 2,054 cases created with 2 inspectors. 623 of those cases, or 30%, were related to dead and missing vegetation. After adding an additional inspector in 2020, the commercial cases jumped to 3,581. Of those 3,581 cases, 1,163, or 32%, of them were dead and missing vegetation related violations. So not only did we add a body at this time, but we almost doubled the number of dead and missing vegetation related cases and increased the caseload per inspector from 513 to 596. Please note that commercial inspectors are responsible for more than just vegetation related violations. They're out there on a daily basis enforcing land uses, development and use permit conditions of approval, site modifications, exterior modifications, illegal signage, graffiti, and the list goes on. Next slide, please. So this next slide shows the results of the code compliance commercial audit that takes place every year in July. 8 categories are evaluated for compliance. One of the categories, which is dead and missing trees, pertains directly to the discussion today. This chart shows the individual category score for dead and missing trees and the overall combined score for the 8 categories every year the audit has been conducted. So in 2014, this was sort of our starting point and the base year of our audit. And then in 2016, we established an individual performance measure for each of the individual inspectors. The equation basically evaluates the entirety of the inspector's work, including inspections, cases, number of times they're in court, the number of abatements that they go through. But this performance evaluation tool has definitely proved to be make inspector efficiency that much better. The audit scored 9% higher than the 2014 score. And then in 2018, we made no major changes to our process, but the gains from 2016 were maintained and the audit score went up by 1%. In 2019, we began focusing on street frontage, not on entire properties. So as a result, the inspectors were able to address more cases in 2019. In late 2019, we also transitioned the residential inspector to a commercial inspector. The audit score increased by 7% that year. In 2020, we lost 1 commercial inspector to COVID-related military leave. The audit score ended up going up 1% that year. And then in 2021 is when we hired a temporary inspector to fill that vacant position of the military leave. And the audit score went up an additional 5%. Next slide, please. So strategies is the next page here. And I guess number 1 would be just to increase inspector efficiency. All 4 of the components of the code compliance performance measure capture valuable data, which is to maximize inspector efficiency. By combining this data with GIS analytics, we are able to reevaluate distributions for each inspector, identify the most prevalent violation types throughout the city, and utilize trend analysis to predict where future concerns will arise. All of this ultimately leading to a more efficient team. The second strategy is to continue educating our businesses and property owners on the codes that they're responsible for. We do this already, but I think we need to do a little bit better job of it. We send postcards, we go to door. We just overall just try to develop relationships with these business owners. And that's something we'll put an emphasis on in 2022. Another strategy would be to improve satisfaction rates of our businesses. As mentioned earlier, the code compliance performance measure is made up of 4 components, one of which is the Tempe Business Survey. That survey shows satisfaction rates of our business owners declining regarding citywide enforcement of codes and ordinances. Due to the feedback that we've received throughout COVID, we're actually not surprised with the decline in satisfaction levels. One of the most prominent comments that we receive is how long it takes to bring a property into compliance. A major factor of this was a policy that was implemented during COVID where we received, basically where we decreased the number of citations issued and abatements conducted on commercial properties. As we reduce our enforcement timeframes back to what we think will be pre-COVID levels, we expect business satisfaction levels to increase again. Another strategy that we'd like to implement in the very, very near future would just be to reevaluate the questions being asked in these surveys to make sure that we are capturing the right information. That's all I have. If anybody has any questions, please ask.
Thank you.
Mr.
Jeff?
Mayor?
Yes, Councilmember Adams?
Hi, yes. Jeff, first of all, great presentation. Very clear. What you've done since you've taken over is quite impressive. And I just really, really appreciate, as I'm out in the community, I do hear about code enforcement and the need for it. And I know that we've made contact on several times, getting your feedback on things. So I really appreciate it. Also, I like it that we're also focusing on the business community and getting their feedback and really working closely with our businesses. And I am concerned about the staffing levels and staff getting burnt out with the amount of cases they're taking. And I'd be supportive of adding more positions as a result. And I just want to tell you to keep up the great work. And that's it, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Adams.
Thank you, Councilmember Adams. Really appreciate it. Anyone else, comments or questions for Jeff?
Mr. Mayor?
Mayor? Oh,
Let's
go ahead, Lauren.
Councilmember
Sorry,
Cubey?
Councilmember Ardonna Savage. Yes, thanks, Jeff. And I remember this charge so well, and I'm really glad that you've taken the bull by the horns. And I just have a question. There's one thing when you notice a tree that's dying, but what about trees that are or vegetation that's no longer there? Do you look back and in consultation with your community development colleagues and see what the landscape plan was for that particular business or mall and see what's happened over the years?
Absolutely.
Is that clear?
Yeah, great question. Absolutely. When the inspectors receive a complaint or when they're going out to a property, and like I said, back in 2019 is when we really implemented sort of a more aggressive, proactive enforcement on street frontage landscaping. And in those cases, that's exactly what we need to do. We go to, we basically get the plans, the original approved plans, and that's what we hold these developers for too. And it's not always the developers, it's the, current property owners, sometimes business owners, but they are responsible for maintaining those landscape plans per the approved plans. And right now, like I had said, our emphasis is more street frontage than other areas of the property. And I understand that if there's a need to, go into other portions of the property, that can be done. It would just take a little bit, to be completely blunt, probably more bodies to, be able to search out the entire landscape plan for every one of those properties. But that is part of our process. We do a lot of research before actually communicating with those property owners to make sure that we are identifying the right trees and the right locations for those replacements.
Thank you for the full explanation. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Councilmember Cubey. Councilmember Arredondo Savage.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Councilmember Cubey. Hey, Jeff, good to not really see you, but to hear you. So thank you for all your work. and for everybody that you're doing. I know that this is kind of something that's been on everybody's radar, but you have really just continued to rock it and do the best you can in regards to the number of bodies that you have. The one thing I was just kind of wondering is, I kind of feel like the more the bodies we have on the ground, then the more dead trees or vegetation cases that we're going to have, whatever that might look like. But what about that resolution piece? I mean, how is that working in regards to, making, like you said, making connections with the property owners and then being able to walk them through the processes of becoming compliant? I mean, is there anything that we can do to help to assist or resources that you might need to make that happen?
No, I appreciate the question. Absolutely. It is very important to communicate with these business owners and sort of let them know what's in front of them. Right now, as I'd stated, we're addressing a lot of the street frontage landscaping issues. We provide them with a landscape plan. And when I say them, I'm referring to the property owners and letting them know that, hey, this is what your responsibility is. We've talked about this in the last week here prior to this presentation here as a team here in code compliance, and we started thinking about other ways that we could notify the property owners and let them know what their responsibilities are. And I hope this is getting at your question.
It is a little, I guess what I'm asking is what is that timeline to get everybody to become compliant? I know that you got to, connect with the right, whoever the property owner is versus,
Sure.
tenant. I get that. I'm just asking, have there been any barriers to be able to allow the property owners to become compliant?
Yeah, and usually these are the types of cases that, it's not like a single family residential property where we're able to rectify that violation within 14 or 28 days. These are projects where they may have 50 to 100 missing trees. Very costly. It doesn't matter what type of owner you are. So what we like to do is we create timelines with these property owners, and we ask them to make progress. You're not going to see progress overnight in the commercial world, not of enforcement. It just doesn't happen. But as long as they're making progress, we typically don't find ourselves in court or abating these properties. The average case, probably a first violation notice. When we issue a first violation notice, we allow them 30 days to start making progress. And sometimes, depending on the size of the project, that can be achieved in 30 days. But the much larger developments, they do need more time. And especially during COVID, we were very flexible. And, our goal overall is just to bring these properties into compliance. We don't want to end up in court, and we don't want to be putting liens on properties. So, yeah, that's sort of the timeline. Does that help, Robin?
Yeah, no, you're good. I was just kind of wondering if there, like you mentioned, I'm thinking between COVID and cost and what that looks like for some of these businesses, being able to come into compliance. And then, if there is a possibility of maybe creating partnerships for maybe how SRP has that tree program to maybe really, push that, or I don't know, just think outside the box a little bit to help alleviate any barriers that there may be. But I know if there's ideas or thoughts out there, Jeff, I have no doubt that you have already sought them out. So I appreciate what you do. Please thank you to yourself, to your department, your staff, everybody. I think everybody on the council, and I think everybody in the community, and through the business survey and through our citizen satisfaction survey, it's important what the city looks like. And your role is a really big part of ensuring that people do their part and keep their promises that they made when it came to approving a landscape design. So I just want to say thank you for what you do. It really matters and it's important. So thank you.
Thank you. Well, I have a fantastic team that works within the division, and I have them to thank.
Thank you, Councilmember Arredondo Savage. Any of the council members' comments or questions for Jeff? Jeff, I just wanted to say, once again, exceptional job as always, and just the sheer fact that, once again, you use the survey results and the data that you received as part of that feedback, and then began to shift resources to produce things based on what our residents and our business owners actually wanted to see. And I mean, it sounds like a very simple comment, but it's something that's really hugely important, because that's the main thing that a lot of our residents and business owners talk about, is feeling like they're being listened to and making sure that we're responsive to their needs and to their concerns. And so the fact that you did exactly that, I mean, my hat's off to you, honestly, for doing that and for using that data to make sure that we are making decisions based on data and actual and numbers and real feedback. And quite honestly, I mean, honestly, that's all I have to say. Like, just great job as always, and just appreciate all the work that you continue to do on behalf of our city.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Anyone else? Any final comments for Jeff? All right, Jeff, thank you so much. Hope you have a great rest of your evening.
Appreciate it. You as well.
Thank you.
Thank you, Council.
All right, next up, item number 3 here, call to the audience. The City Council welcomes public comment at this time listed for items under Section 4, Committee of the Whole items on this work study session agenda, and there is a 3-minute time limit per speaker. Madam Clerk, do we have any speaker or comment cards received from the public?
No additional cards have been received, Mayor.
Okay, well, the next item on the agenda is the call to the audience for Committee of the Whole items. Actually, I think that was, no, we don't need to do that. What am I talking about? We just need to go to item number 4, which is Committee of the Whole items. Items ready for City Council direction or status update. The item ready for City Council direction is item 4A1, Human Services and Community Safety Council Committee, and that is the Community Safety Strategic Plan update. I believe that's Councilmember Garland and Councilmember Navarro. Who wants to take the lead? Councilmember Garland, since she's right next to me. Go for it.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to take a moment to share an update with the council of the incredible work being done through our Community Safety Strategic Plan. Part of our Human Services and Community Safety Work Plan is to receive routine updates on the Community Safety Strategic Plan. I'm excited to talk about some of the updates, but first I'd like to thank our staff on their terrific work. I want to say thank you to Rosa and Chowsty and Wydell Holmes. I want to say thank you to Chief Glover and Assistant Chief Anderson and others. And this Community Safety Strategic Plan was the natural next step in the evolution of our discussion, which really began with the Public Safety Advisory Task Force. So, Mayor Woods, I'd like to say thank you to you for your initiative in getting this conversation started. The Community Safety Strategic Plan is our overarching initiative to improve ways that we conduct policing. Creating community safety is not the responsibility of one person or one department. It's a comprehensive look at our city, our entire city, and the services that we provide. Our policing professionals do incredible work, but they need help. Our police officers and our dispatchers are asked to do tremendous work. It's vital and important work. And I just have to say that Councilmember Arredondo Savage and I, over the past 3 weeks, have been on a listening tour with both of those departments, and I have to say that I have my eyes have been opened to the amount of work and that they put in to keep our community safe. What they see and what they hear every day to conduct their jobs, to protect us, is absolutely amazing. And I have to say that they are truly a lifeline to help in our community, and I want to thank them. So I'm very excited to see the continued progress with this plan. So the first update I have is about the 911 cohort. This is a grassroots, multidisciplinary cohort that we have created here. This is a group of composed stakeholders from our city. It's the city staff, ASU, NAU, and the Grand Canyon Institute. And all of these partners are joining together for a common goal, which is improving our community safety and how we dispatch calls. They're going to begin work on analyzing our calls for service and reimagine how we deploy our resources. Specifically, we are going to examine how to divert 911 calls to unarmed, trained professionals equipped with the supportive services that are needed, like mental and behavioral health, crisis, and substance abuse. And we have gathered the right people to work on these issues, and I'm really excited to see what they come up with next. The next major update is our upcoming contract with Solari Crisis Response Network. This contract is coming before council for approval at the next council meeting. This is a unique, groundbreaking, multidisciplinary program. Last year, myself and our other council members were given a tour of this Solari facility, and we were able to meet with their leadership and some of their employees. And now working with Solari will allow us and our current dispatchers to ensure that we send the appropriate resources to individuals experiencing a mental health crisis. This is an immediate and urgent need, and I'm glad to see us moving forward in this direction. We will be able to provide assistance to individuals experiencing a crisis and be able to do so without a police response. If a caller experiences a mental health crisis or suicide ideation, they will be triaged through that system. And at that point, Solari will coordinate the sending of either Care 7 or non-armed trained mental health professionals. Solari handles 18,000 calls monthly, which is amazing. But 90% of those calls are stabilized over the phone without a police or mobile response. Cities like Mesa, Phoenix, and Chandler have a call diversion model, but we will be the first city in Arizona with this specific model. Our Care 7 team, who is accredited, will be deeply embedded in this process and will augment this relationship. With their 25 years of experience in Tempe, Care 7 has a strong foundation of success in our community that allows this new model to be one of the best in the nation. Our communications professionals have been trained on which calls will require diversion. In the beginning of 2022, right now, there will be full integration of Care 7 and human services into our call handling procedures. And I have to say, I think this is absolutely incredible. The final update is that our online dashboard for this plan is now active. The web page can be found at tempe.gov/community safety. It shows the actual and real-time accomplishments of the plan. I was a little bit concerned about our work on this community safety effort and that it was going to result in a study or a publication of the strategic plan, and then it might possibly sit on a back shelf and not move forward or be forgotten. But our staff has been diligent in ensuring that this will not be the case, and I trust them and believe them. Everything that we will be accomplishing will be available for everyone to see, because we know that community engagement is vital for the success of this plan, and our community deserves to understand what is happening in an engaging and transparent way. From this dashboard, they will be able to see the initiative status and specific activities that are in place. So I hope that you will take the time to go and look at this dashboard. Again, it's at tempe.gov/community safety, and I hope you go back there more than just once and see what we were doing. So I just want to say thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilmember Garland. Really appreciate it. Great synopsis. Let me go to Councilmember Navarro next.
Yeah, appreciate it. And Councilmember Garland, I mean, it was just so appreciative on the information you provide for us in the committee and what, you know, we've all been doing. But, you know, your leadership has been really strategic on this. Just want to say thank you for your time and effort that you put into the committee. Also, I want to thank staff for their work. I know that, you know, we often give direction and trying to make things happen, but to Councilmember Garland's point, this is really impactful for a number of reasons. We talk about community policing and how we're changing, how we're reforming. These are the angles, these are the smaller, low-hanging fruit that we can make changes that actually have tremendous benefit from hitting things at the lowest end where they do not escalate to the highest end, where we've seen things that across our country that would not have to go to that level. I can't tell you how thankful I am for this city to engage and for our staff and our commitment from the dispatchers to the behind the scenes workers to the public safety, to the people on the street, to coordinate and not work in silos, to utilize all of our resources to be able to get the benefit for the people that are truly in need, the people that need our help within our community. And I think Councilmember Garlett said it clearly, this is one of a kind. And throughout my time on council and my time in public safety and my time on national committees, being involved in various things that coordinates these things that we do, we truly are a leader in this area. And I think that we still have more room to grow, obviously, but we are making strides that to Councilman McCarthy's point, the dashboard to reference what we're doing and how we're doing, the impacts we're making. These are the things that other cities are not even there yet. And I have to say, this is tremendous, and I'm very proud to be on this committee, so thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Navarro. Any other council members, any comments or questions or things they'd like to add? Well, I just wanted to say, once again, thank you, Councilmember Garland, for giving such a great synopsis of a lot of the work that's being done. I just really appreciate it, and very informative for anyone who's here right now or watching on TV. And, to also reiterate a point that Councilmember Navarro made, just wanted to give a major shout out to our Human Services Division and our Tempe Police Department for the incredible work that both departments do. And something you said, Councilmember Navarro, the ability to work in an interdepartmental fashion, to work together and collaborate to solve problems. Many times you'll see in other cities, people are working in silos, and one department's doing this, the other department's doing this, and there's a territorial nature about, I don't want you in my space, and I don't want you in my space either. But the reality is that is not how our Human Services Division and how our police department operate. They work well together. And when you have departments that are working this well together with great leadership at the top, what you find is great things happen, and we can really do true innovative work along the way. And so this is really innovative. And as Councilmember Garland, you talked about, we would be the first city in the state of Arizona to really adopt this kind of very forward-thinking model, which is very much in keeping with the times. I also wanted to give a major shout out to our Deputy City Manager, Rosa Inchowski, as well, for all the work that you and your team did when it came to working on the Public Safety Advisory Task Force. Councilmember Garland, I know, mentioned how a lot of the work on this community safety plan started with that task force. I wanted to say thank you for your leadership of the Strategic Management and Diversity Department during that time, and obviously getting that project off the ground, especially in the middle of COVID when people weren't able to meet in person, and all of those meetings were held in a virtual format. But still, we've gotten something that's truly innovative and frankly life-changing. So I just wanted to say thank you to your team as well, Jonay Harrison and Wydell Holmes, and just thank you to everyone. This is a really, really innovative program. I think we are so ahead of the curve and continuing to just do everything that Tempe is frankly all about. And it's because, once again, a total team effort of everyone in this room and everyone who works on behalf of the city. So I just wanted to say thank you. Anyone else? Any further comments or questions? All right, hearing none. Thank you, Councilmember Garland. Once again, thank you, Councilmember Navarro, for your leadership in taking all this over. And anything you need, just let us know. Let's see here. Item 4B, council committees in progress. Does any council member would like to provide an update regarding the following council committees? Human Services and Community Safety, Sustainable and Livable Communities, and Workforce Readiness and Economic Vitality. All right, hearing none, I will move on here to future agenda items. Council members may request that an agenda item be added to a future issue review session. And in accordance with the open meeting law, there should be no discussion on the item other than to clarify the request. Does any council member have a future agenda item that you'd like added to a future agenda? Councilmember Garland.
Thank you, Mayor. I've seen the Tempe's Code of Conduct, and I noticed that bullying is not listed on that Code of Conduct. So I'd like to know if staff can come back and give us a presentation on our Code of Conduct, kind of reviewing the definition of bullying and see if it could be or should be added to our Code of Conduct.
Okay, sounds good. I guess I'll look to probably Mr. Ching and Ms. Blaine, whatever. Is that possible we can get together and bring some of that information for Councilmember Garland and for the entire council?
Certainly, Mayor. Happy to do so on behalf of the City Attorney's Office.
Wonderful. Sounds good. Really appreciate it. And I guess we'll Madam Clerk, we can work with you to find the appropriate time to get that on the agenda once we get that information compiled. Perfect. Councilmember Garland, sound good to you? All right, wonderful, thank you. Any other members of council, any other future agenda items you'd like added?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, Councilmember Cubie.
I actually have two, and it relates a lot to what you're saying about this, the intersectionality and cross-cutting nature of some of the issues that we're dealing with. And one is, and I've been speaking to human services staff and to resiliency and our sustainability staff and to the deputy city manager, Rosa, and to our city manager about these issues. So one is I want to ask for a presentation from staff on potential energy efficiency programs for homes and mobile home residents. And we have a number of mobile home communities in our city, and sometimes they've been a crisis point in our city. And these residents not only suffer the most from extreme heat, leaving them more at risk for heat-related deaths, but they also face unique barriers in getting funding and getting financial assistance, especially with COVID relief funds. And there's a knowledge exchange for resilience at ASU that's done groundbreaking work studying the region and even drilling down into Tempe about mobile home communities and what can be done to help with energy efficiency and to relieve heat stress in those communities. And so I was hoping that staff could work with CARE, that the Knowledge Exchange for Resilience, and come back to us with information on the scope of the problem in Tempe and what might be done to alleviate it. So I had a good conversation with Naomi about this. I'm hoping that council would agree that we could look into this issue related to mobile homes.
Sounds good. Thank you, Councilmember Cubie, for the suggestion. Council, everyone good with that going forward? I know I definitely am.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Wonderful.
And then the second thing is the city of New York recently adopted legislation that is requiring employers of more than 4 employees to list the salary range of open positions. So when they advertise positions, they have to list what the salary range is. It's part of their equal pay initiative. And this is one sort of peg in our equal pay program that we haven't necessarily thought about, but apparently it's been thought across the country where cities have adopted this. It really helps to tackle inequities that often women more and Black and brown people and other groups. And just by listing, just the transparency action of listing the salary range in a job announcement, it helps to alleviate some of those gaps and actually have positive impact. So I was hoping that with the anniversary of Equal Pay Day coming up, I think April 12th, I spoke with Rosa Inchausti, who really spearheaded our Equal Pay program, and wanted to see what we might be able to do in looking at pay transparency in our city, not just related to our city itself, but to employers throughout our city. So I'm hoping we could have staff come back and look at that and bring it back around, before Equal Pay Day, in case we have the opportunity to enact something.
Sounds good. Thank you, Councilmember Cubie. I was looking at Rosa. She was nodding her head as you were speaking, so that sounds good from a staff standpoint. And council, everyone good? All right. Sounds good. Thank you, Councilmember Cubie.
Thank you.
Great. Any other council members? Any future agenda items? All right. Hearing no other ones. The next item on the agenda is mayor's announcements and city manager's announcements. I don't have any announcements this evening. Mr. City Manager.
No announcements, thank you.
All right. That brings us to item number 7, which is the next meeting date, which is February 17th, 2022. Thank you so much, everyone, for attending this evening. Have a good rest of your evening.